to order, and ask Madam Clerk if she would please call the roll.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Shealy. Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Wagner. Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings. Councilmember Shea. Councilmember Griffin. Councilmember Moody. Councilwoman Jackson. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. Now, if you would like to join us, Councilmember Moody will either lead us or defer an invocation, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to welcome my friend Bill Christian, if he would start coming up, just a little bit of an introduction. Bill is the CEO of the Star Gospel Mission. This mission's been around since 1904, started by a guy by the name of Obadiah Dugan. You don't see many Obadiahs around. But the mission of the mission is transforming hearts and minds, hearts and lives through Jesus Christ. Yesterday, some of y'all may have seen in the paper where we gave out over 800 cards, and for the last 10 years, Councilmember Mitchell and Councilmember Lewis have been down there early on Monday mornings, at the first Monday after Thanksgiving, to do that. So we thank you for your involvement, and at this time, I welcome Reverend Christian to the mic.
Thank you so much, Bill. And by the way, Bill Moody has been a member of the Board of Directors of the Star Gospel Mission for 18 years. We don't have term limits. So he's going to stay with us a long time, we hope. Shall we bow our heads for a word of prayer as we open this council meeting? Dear Heavenly Father, as we prepare in heart and mind in this season of Advent to go again to Bethlehem, to celebrate the greatest gift of love that you have ever given to the world, the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ, give us ever humble and grateful hearts for the multitude of blessings you've bestowed upon us throughout our lives. We thank you especially for the many costly freedoms that we so enjoy in this great land that you have given us the opportunity to live in. We pray for those who bear the authority of government in this and every land, especially the President of the United States, the Senate, the Congress, our governor, all of our state representatives, our mayor, and our city council, our police and fire departments, and all those who protect and defend us in this wonderful city. Help them all to make wise decisions and take the right actions necessary to maintain the welfare and peace of the world. We pray that our mayor, John Tecklenburg, and the city council would lead the people of Charleston effectively. Give them the humility to seek your guidance and the courage to do your will, that they may be a strong witness to all whom they serve, and prudent stewards of the resources you have entrusted to their care for the purposes that will best serve the good of your people throughout this city. Give them the guidance of your Holy Spirit, so that they may never lead wrongfully through the love of power or the desire to please or unworthy ideals, but to always love that which is just and right and truthful, and that which will fulfill the oath of the office that they have taken for the good and well-being of all our citizens. Father, we pray that you would give them a strong sense of vision to see far beyond the issues of their time, the courage to uphold what they believe to be right, and the integrity in their words, in their actions, and in their motives, to the end that all their decisions might benefit the majority of the people whom you have called them to serve. And now we ask that you would help them to fulfill their duties and responsibilities with singleness of mind and purpose of will, that they may wisely and faithfully exercise the authority committed to them to promote the common good. All of this we ask in the name and for the sake of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I do see some new faces here this evening, so but I say this every time anyway, just in case. there were an event that we had to evacuate the building. I want everybody to know, these obviously are the two doors out of the main council chambers here. There's also a door out of the room to my right. In that event, don't use the elevator, but take the stairs down, and then the single set of stairs out the front door. So that's very unlikely to occur, but just in case we had to evacuate, I like everybody to know where they're headed. First order of business, or a couple of order businesses are both quite wonderful things. The first is our annual presentation of now we dub the 2020 Robert Ballard Award. So before we present this, I'd like to take a moment to announce that just this year, we rededicated this award in honor and in memory of a truly remarkable neighborhood and civic leader, Robert A. Ballard, Jr., who passed away in 2018. Not only did Robert have his own career in public service with Charleston County, but he served several terms as the Radcliffe Borough Neighborhood Association president. He was a regular at City Council and City of Charleston when it came to participating in meetings of all kinds, thoughtfully discussing issues and attending events and suggesting new and innovative ideas. And through it all, he remained soft-spoken, mannerly, and kind, so thoughtful, so caring. So it's with great pride and respect that this award will now honor Mr. Ballard. Sally Ballard, Robert's wife, is here, and I'd like her to come forward and to stand and be recognized. Sally, please join me, along with members of the Neighborhood Commission. Would you all come forward as well? Please come up on the podium with me if you would. Now, these other Neighborhood Commission members, they have the difficult task every year of identifying one individual among a pool of very impressive nominees who would be honored with this award, who best exemplifies, in Robert's example, dedication to civic participation and action. And tonight, I'm very proud to announce that the recipient of the 2020 Robert Ballard Award is Charlie Fox of West Ashley. Charlie Fox, would you stand and do that? Will you come and join us up here first? I'm going to ask Sally to first do this. Okay. Now, if I may first ask Sally Ballard to share a few words with us. Sally?
First, I would like to thank Mayor Tecklenburg and all members of council for this great honor you have bestowed upon Robert. He did love the city, and he loved his neighborhood, and he liked all the neighborhoods, really. So, Charlie, it is wonderful that you have followed suit. I am pleased that you are the first recipient in his name, and on Giving Tuesday, it is most appropriate that we are recognizing you for what you have done for all the city, and particularly for the youth in this city. Thank you.
So give me another minute. Go ahead. Yeah. So, yeah, you do. Yeah. I think you all know Charlie is a native Charlestonian. His mom is with us here today. Would all of Charlie's family, if you'd like, also come forward as well. He is passionate about helping others, has worked with nonprofits in the areas of the arts, health, and crisis management. He can be found helping neighbors near and far when running a chainsaw for weeks after Hurricane Hugo, or building a shower trailer, or taking it on the road to victims of Hurricane Katrina after losing power after the most recent storm. Charlie was out there helping in his own neighborhood in South Windermere by going house to house with the generator, plugging it in so elderly residents wouldn't lose their goods in their refrigerators and freezers, clearing debris for them. He's a tireless advocate for bicycle safety. You've probably seen Charlie on the road, come rain or come shine, any kind of weather. He's out there getting around on his bicycle. It's with sincere congratulations and admiration that we award the Robert Ballard Excellence at Volunteer Service Award for 2020 to Charlie Fox. And we have a plaque here for you, Charlie. Give that to you. And let's see, then if you'd like to say a few remarks, we'd be most pleased. And then we'll get a picture together.
So I remember Robert, our kids went to Buse, where Sally was the principal, and Robert had our kids come up to the recycling bin, and that was when I first met him. But I also got to know him because he had a personality that he could be your adversary, and you'd think he loved you to death. And any of y'all that remember him being in these chambers probably could attest to that. I know my father had similar personality traits like that, and those two took on a few battles together and were victorious. And they weren't politicians, but they were politically correct. Something that certainly wouldn't be said of me, because if it's on my mind, it's on my mouth, and sometimes it comes out a little hard. I think y'all's fannies have endured enough speakers today and probably need to get on to business. But thank you for the honor, Sally, and your beloved husband.
All right.
Mayor,
Oh, yes, sir. Councilmember Lewis.
I was once a city council person for Radcliffe Borough years ago.
Yes, sir.
Because of Robert's good leadership, working with his neighborhood organization in the city, he was the person that made sure that we worked together to start the street sweeping program.
Is that
With his
right?
leadership, that's how we started the street sweeping program that started down in Radcliffe Borough.
Isn't that
And
something?
he was a great leader in the city, and we surely have missed him, but thank God for this award tonight, named after him.
Right. Very kind of you to remark that. Councilmember Lewis was remarking about Robert's role in the Radcliffe Borough neighborhood and our street sweeping program. Yeah. Thank you so much. So one other happy item here this evening, and that's to have a proclamation recognizing Dr. Martin Perlmutter Day. And excuse me, Doctor, if I say Marty, because that's the name I'm used to using. Please come forward if you would, along with your family. And I have it might be half the chambers, but that's okay. We got a lot of kids. I bet they can squeeze up here. But I'd love to have y'all come forward as I present your grandfather, dad. She said she would go home with me earlier, and now she's upset. Okay. Y'all come forward. Hey kids, how y'all doing? Yeah.
With an untied shoelace.
Hey, how are you? Getting your shoes tied? All right. Come forward, everyone. So I have a proclamation to present, and this is to honor Marty on the occasion of his recent retirement as the leader of the Yashik Arnold Jewish Studies program at the College of Charleston. And whereas originally from New York, Marty is the son of Jewish immigrants who fled from Germany in 1938 to escape the Holocaust. And whereas Marty has lived out the philosophy passed on to him by his parents, your job in life is to do things. You have to make the world a better place. And whereas Marty joined the College of Charleston faculty with a goal to create Jewish institutions, courses, and programs at the college that would resonate with students, faculty, and the community at large. And whereas in 1984, under the direction of Marty, the first Jewish Studies program was founded at the College of Charleston. After chairing the philosophy department for 8 years, Marty became full-time director of the Yashik Arnold program in Jewish Studies in 1991. Through his leadership, he has fostered a campus culture that celebrates diversity and seeks to bring important racial and cultural topics to the forefront of conversation. His building blocks to the success of the program have been community outreach, student life, and classes that explore Jewish history and thought. Whereas Marty has had a tremendous impact on the city of Charleston, which has one of the richest Jewish heritages in America, with one of the largest Jewish populations per capita of any city in the United States. Among his numerous achievements are the annual Hanukkah in the Square celebration, which we so proudly partner with you every year, the 2016 opening of Marty's Place on college campus, located in the expanded portion of the Jewish Studies Center, which, as I mentioned, he founded, and most recently, the 2018 founding of the Perlmutter Fellows Program, which is designed to attract incoming students in Jewish communal engagement. And whereas Marty possesses a true sense of service, passion, and energy, has enriched the experiences of those fortunate enough to know and work with him, I am honored to recognize him and thank him for his tremendous contributions to the College of Charleston, to the Jewish community, and to the city of Charleston at large and its citizens. So therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, do proclaim today, Tuesday, December 3rd, to be Professor Martin Perlmutter Day in the city of Charleston. There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor Tecklenburg, and thanks for being such a civil and collegial leader. I mean, I think that civility is a mark of Charleston and really is something that, especially in this political environment, should be highlighted. I really want to thank two people who really have done the heavy lifting. I just was the face of the program. Enid Idelson, who was the administrator of the program since 2002. Mark Swick in the corner, who's a community liaison. Thank you so much. Yossi is, Rabbi Refson, affectionately called Yossi, has been a collaborator in lots of projects. Hanukkah in the Square is really his doing as much as ours. And those of you who haven't attended Hanukkah in the Square, December 22nd, you can get lots of potato latkes, more fat than you want to deal with, but it's a wonderful event. It's actually the largest Jewish event in South Carolina. I obviously want to thank my family. They've actually had to put up with me for many, many years, and Jewish Studies has occupied a lot of time and energy. So it's been not only my project, it's been theirs. I do want to say that it's been a joyful ride. It's a wonderful city that Charleston is. The college has been a wonderful place to work. It's given me space to work and do it. And the community has really been the engine of the program. Henry Yashik, of blessed memory, started the program, a Charlestonian, originally from Argentina. He and his wife started the Henry and Sylvia Yashik program. Norman Arnold, a Charlestonian by birth, who moved to Columbia, but always a Charlestonian by temperament and by his own history, really sort of fostered the program. I want to, since this is a city event, I want to mention Mayor Riley, who really helped foster Hanukkah in the Square, Ellen Dressler-Morrow, who not only fostered Hanukkah in the Square, but a world of Jewish culture at Piccolo Spoleto. It really has been all a joint effort. And let me just say that you know that Charleston's a wonderful community because of the people behind me. all of them left Charleston. I'm not originally a Charlestonian, you can hear that in my accent, but all of them, all our 4 children, Jerry and my wife, Jerry, to whom I'm incredibly grateful, and all our 4 children left, and they all came back. And they came back because you all have created a community that made them want to come back. So really, really deep, deep thanks to all of you. My sister and her brother-in-law, my brother-in-law retired to Charleston, and it's because it's a wonderful city. And I just want to end on one sort of note, that Charleston is a wonderful city because it's also had a wonderful history. It obviously had a really dark and unhappy history in virtue of race. It's a legacy that we're trying to recover from even now. But on the positive side, really on the much more positive side, it's had a tradition of religious accommodation and religious acceptance that really is very unique. And really, in many ways, it's something that the community should celebrate, because it's something that really, in the current world environment, is something that should be highlighted. So many, many thanks for the honor, and I appreciate it, and you all are doing a great job. I thank you very much.
So Enid and Mark, I did mean to invite y'all up to join us on the podium. Thank you for being with us. And Rabbi Refson, thank you so much for being with us tonight as well. All right, so next we have some public hearings, and these are all regarding our budget. There are 4 different matters. One being the municipal accommodations fee, one being another municipal accommodations fee, and then the general liabilities and revenue of the city of Charleston for next year's 2020. So with everybody's concurrence, if you have any matter regarding our city budget for next year, be it accommodations or the regular budget, this will be a public hearing for that. We would ask that everyone state your name and address when you come forward, and we'd ask you also to keep your remarks to 2 minutes, and to keep them regarding any budgetary matter coming to the city of Charleston for 2020. Would anyone like to be heard? Please come forward.
So I got this straight. I very rarely write things down. It's old way of doing things. But the public comment being made on the budget is on the South Carolina Planning and Enabling Act and the 1930 policy that you're dealing with in land use, and whether or not that was a criteria, method, arrangement to undermine Title VI under 629.770 government entities. 629.530 since 1930, public hearings. 629.800 variance special exemptions, remand, stay, or termination made by administrative official. 629.1340 floodplain, transportation, housing, public safety, wireless telecommunications. You serve on the board for the airport. Therefore, under Article 13, Section 29.1620, Federal Defense Facilities Integrity Protection Act, 629.1630, local planning, investigation, recommendation, and floodings. So the question basically before the body is whether or not you operated in bad faith since 1930, whether that led to the dismantling of political power, and do we still need political power within the African American community? The second piece is, I did receive this from the Supreme Court. I am Anthony G. Bryant, 23 Cortland Avenue, Charleston, South Carolina, 29403. and under sovereign immunity, and it should be noticed that every federal agency that work with the city of Charleston have sovereign immunity, even in error, even regarding the management of the Second Amendment that affected Emmanuel. They have sovereign immunity. That needs to be on the record, given notice, because you get a lot of money from the feds in terms of public safety. It's be on the table. Okay, so now this is the Plan Enabling Act here. These are all the documents. In 2001 to 2002, in terms of
Time.
well, take all these documents here. I'll be back with it. I'm up on deck first. Take
All right.
that.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard on any budgetary matters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cashin Drolay. I live at 2 Craven Avenue, and I am not tall enough. I am speaking on behalf of the Historic Charleston Foundation. And as the council begins its discourse, or continues its discourse on the budget for 2020, we just wanted to reiterate our support of the city funding a full-time archaeology position. That position has long been called for in the city's preservation ordinance, and it's really time as the city faces development pressures to fund the position and implement the ordinance. And our second support position would be for funding a position of a BAR enforcement. I know this position has been vacant for a long time. The staff has long requested it, and we believe it's an important safeguard to the city to fund and fill this position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to be heard? Yes, sir.
Mayor, City Council, I'd like to know how much is in the budget for J.C. Calhoun. Could anyone tell me that? The statue?
This is a comment period, not a question and answer, but I will.
No, you don't have to if it's not.
There's no money in the budget for the statute, none whatsoever. Thank you. All right. Would anybody else like to make a comment regarding our budget for next year? Hearing no more, it comes to council. We have 4 ordinances. I would, are we making a motion to take all 4 ordinances together? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is approval of our city council minutes from November 12th.
Well,
Any additions or corrections?
Well, actually, I think we just provided you with those. I don't know that you've had an opportunity to review those. They do have the minutes of the 12th on their desk.
Amendment.
They went out last night. Did you have an opportunity? I thought they went out today. You haven't had an opportunity to review. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay, we can defer these minutes until the next meeting, no problem. We have a motion to defer. Did we get a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our
Mr.
citizen.
Mayor.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Waring.
Yes, sir, I hate to go back, but doing Ways and Means, you spoke about the ad hoc budget process, and we just whisked through it during city council meeting. I think, if you don't mind, it bears repeating the extra work that staff and all put in to get that budget put together.
Sure.
I thought what you said was appropriate Ways and Means, and I hope we make it part of the city
Right.
council meeting.
I'd be happy to do that. So quite a few additional citizens have arrived. We had our Ways and Means Committee meeting about an hour ago, and boy, it went right through quickly as our approval of these 4 ordinances just did. And just as an explanation to everyone, the reason why it went so quickly is because we've been working very diligently for the last 3 months, and really back to last May, I think. We have an ad hoc budget committee meeting that is comprised of the chairman of about 5 different city council committees, and they review, along with the mayor, all of the departmental requests and budgets, and I can't tell you how many hours worth of meetings we had this year in preparation of our annual budget. So when we got here this afternoon and this evening, really all the work had been done, and I know it might just look like we're blindly approving these budgets. We're not. Really, a lot of scrutiny and a lot of discussion and a lot of tough decisions were made along the way. Yes, sir. Okay, so next is our citizens' participation period. We have
12.
Dozen folks signed up. We normally take about a half hour, so if y'all would take, again, give us your name and address, and we'll have 2 minutes each, and Madam Clerk will call out the names, and y'all come forward. We look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. Anthony Bryant, Nita Weiss, Karen Beard, and Leah Watley.
Anthony G. Bryant, 2123 Cortland Avenue, South Carolina 29403, according to Chief Justice Roberts and Scott S. Harris, one of the best clerks, I think, in the country. This is where I'm at. Rule 64, and it's 83 rules across the street, 48 rules in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, 48 rules in the Supreme Court. It was a U.S. Senator, James DeWolf out of Rhode Island, who was the second wealthiest man in America, and he seized human beings, black folk. So when I hear Rule 64, the seizure of person and property, I think about Dred Scott. I think about so many people that have been seized. And when our young people get a seized educational system, environmental policy, parks and recreation, you see them parading on TV as if this was something new. When you come into this council meeting in the 2020, there's no race-conscious policy at all. There's no one Charleston. There's Charlestonians that are being seized and Charlestonians who are trapping other Charlestonians. But the sending points they had about a manual, I had it 5 years ago. Congress did not have any policies for the Second Amendment in dealing with that issue at all. But those who were against that issue were referred to by organizations to the feds. Rule 64, Rule 73. That organization has to clearly understand people have a right to dissent their point of views even within their own community. You can get your monument, you can get your museum, but are you really free?
Thank you, sir.
Nita?
Nita?
Karen Beard? Followed by Leah Watley.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm Karen Beard. My address is 537 Whitechapel Circle, and I'm a member of the Small Cell Ordinance Group. And as you know, we are very concerned about the health of our children with the deployment of 5G in Charleston. And because we are so concerned, we're bringing 2 requests to our council, because you are our representatives and you're the only ones who can speak for us. And those requests are: the first one, we're asking you to instruct corporate counsel to revise the current small cell ordinance to require transmitter placement at specific distances from schools, daycares, hospitals, and residences, because distance is your friend whenever it comes to wireless radiation. And the further we can have these transmitters from our children, the better. The second thing we're asking you to do is to pause the site application approvals until the revisions can be passed. And we know that you and Mayor Tecklenburg are under a lot of legal pressure with these applications and their approvals. And so we will appreciate your consideration of this, because we know we're asking something large of you. Last week we sent you a long email with a lot of research explaining why we are so concerned. It was a long email, and I apologize for it being so long, but there's more material in it than we can stand and speak in front of you. So I thank you for reading it, and with your permission, we will send you more research this week so that you can better understand our concern. We aren't experts on this technology, but we can send you links to people who are experts on it. We know that there are state bills that are pending now that could nullify all of our local ordinances if our ordinances do not comply with the state bills. And so we're asking corporate counsel to study the state bill and to draft a ordinance for Charleston that will comply to the state requirements, but still provide better protection for Charleston's children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leah Watley. I'm at 1536 Minter Boulevard, and I just want to thank you all for your time and willingness to hear us out. I'm also with the Small Cell Ordinance Group. I first became aware of 5G technology when I encountered a young man from China, and he began to tell me about the technology and all that it's capable of doing and how their government there is using it to control the population. I also echo the health concerns that you're going to hear from everybody. Since I met him, I've done a lot of research about 5G and the technology and the things that it's capable of. It's capable of doing some amazing things, which I think is great, but it's also capable of doing a lot of harm to our health, harm to our national security. Our own government has expressed concerns about national security and the ability that it would give nations like China and Russia to spy on us, individual citizens, especially if they're the first to roll it out and they maintain control of the 5G technology. I also have concerns about constitutional rights, like the Fourth Amendment, with this technology. I'm asking you all to protect us, not just our health, but also our rights as citizens, American citizens, and also take into consideration our national security risk with this technology. I would love to tell you more about it if you want to learn more about it. I'm learning about it myself. I'm by no means an expert, but I've been sending some information about what other cities are doing to safeguard their citizens, and I just ask you all for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think this is Sarah Carafa or something like that. A.J. Gardner, Sherry Irwin, and Stephen J. White, Sr.
Hello, I'm Sarah Carafa. My address is 1628 Baltusrol Lane. I was here my mom's calling me. I was here last week. I'm just going to read a couple of notes really quickly. In honor of the first annual Professor Marty Day and trying to make the world a better place, that's all we're really here trying to do. We don't know everything about this technology. We can't tell you everything, but we can give you all of the research that we're reading and all of the things that we find are really important. And I'm just asking that we could find the time to review all of the medical research that we sent to you guys, including one that we recently sent from the Physicians for Safe Technology. It has a lot of really interesting things, and we'll go into a lot of the health issues that happen, which again happen with my other half over here, AJ. He'll go through a lot of the symptoms that happen with him. I want you to recognize when you're trying to Google this on your own, when you're at home trying to look it up, that Google puts a lot of money and the companies put a lot of money so that it's kind of hidden. So the main thing that you're going to find is that there's a company called Huawei who has been banned, and that USA actually led the charge to ban that 5G company. However, all of the other 5G companies that are coming around to roll out their plans are using the same network the same way. So don't read into the propaganda and just try and read the facts, try and look into the research. And then the last thing that I was going to say is that this is being banned in other places, and Charleston shouldn't be the last place. We should take the lead. That's what we're good at. We were, a very early on city in the nation, and I think that we should take the charge East Coast to West Coast, banning this 5G until we have more information scientifically of what it does. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is A.J. Gardner, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come back and speak tonight. I'd also like to take a moment and apologize to Mr. Mayor and Madam Clerk for going so over time and out of line last meeting. I deal with electrohypersensitivity on a daily basis, which is a very painful condition, and I get very worked up when it comes to the thought of this affecting our children moving forward, especially with CCSD putting a tower on a middle school campus. So electrohypersensitivity is a condition in which electromicrowave frequencies affects the human body in which a way they cannot comprehend. This illness may be early in development, but has been a very real concern dating back to the earliest 20th century. The neurasthenic symptoms most commonly exhibited are abdominal pain, altered sugar metabolism, anxiety, behavioral disorders, brain degenerative diseases, including an increase in dementia and Alzheimer's, burning skin, calcium efflux, cancerous affiliations with leukemia, brain tumors, and heart disease, cardiac palpitations, chronic exhaustion, concentration problems, depression, skin rashes, dermatological issues, disordering fillings, the fillings in your teeth, this is being affected. Deteriorating vision, digestive problems, dizziness to the point of falling over, dryness in lips, general dehydration, enlarged thyroids, epilepsy, extreme fluctuations in blood pressure, harder to manage with medicine, fatigue, flu-like symptoms, hair loss, headaches, migraines, hearing noise, heart attacks, heart rhythm disorders, I can keep going, itching, irritability, learning disabilities, memory loss, MS, nausea, nervous and tissue pains. I want to touch on that really quick. I've been diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy by Charleston Sports Medicine. I have a block the size of a phone on my left thigh in my IT band I've been going to therapy for months now because I have damaged nerves this size. The FCC says that we should hold our phones 15 millimeters away from our bodies. This is in all of your Apple agreement service and solutions. Thank you.
Mr. White? Okay, well, Sherry, I didn't see Sherry. Sherry, you're next.
Good to see you again.
You too. I'm Sherry Irwin. I live at 45 Sycamore Avenue. I'm just going to touch on two things. With 5G, I actually saw a video a few months ago. It showed a tree, and on the side with it, the 5G wasn't, the tower was not, the tree was fine. On the right side, the leaves had died and fallen off. So it's something you might want to consider. And I'm also here because I am begging you guys on the city council to vote down these high-rise buildings in West Ashley and at the Citadel Mall. I can't stand what I keep seeing. I know you guys are going to try to turn us urban in these ugly buildings that you keep building. Another ugly one's been built near my home. Ugly flat roofs. I know you guys call it a cohesion of architecture. I call it Soviet Union communist-style buildings. And it breaks my heart to see you guys turn this town urban. I can't believe we zone things urban here in Charleston and what's happened to the crosstown. And I know you're trying to do it to us in West Ashley, and I just pray that God moves you guys to stop this. Stop the urbanization that you're trying to do to us. We're getting tired of living in fear. You know, we've been told you had plans for every square inch of West Ashley. We were being bombarded for a while, trying to get us out of our condos. Please, we shouldn't be living in fear of our elected officials. You're supposed to protect and preserve our private property rights. And I moved to West Ashley because it was a suburb. I've lived in Atlanta, I've lived in Boston. I wanted to get away from that. Please don't do this. I know it's about money, but I beg of you, we don't want high-rise buildings in West Ashley. Thank you.
Stephen White?
Good evening. I'm one of those rare visitors to City Council who have not come here to complain. I am in fact here to offer my enthusiastic congratulations to the re-election of our mayor, John Tecklenburg. My family has been here since the 1820s. I grew up here and have lived here all of my life except for going away to college and graduate school. And I love the city enormously, and I want good things to happen to the city. And I believe John Tecklenburg's programs and policies have that intent. And I certainly want to speak directly to the council members that unlike in his first term, when the practice was to obstruct and to defeat proposals that John Tecklenburg made, and then accuse him in his re-election campaign of having not done things that you guys prevented him from doing. Please do not continue that kind of policy of obstruction, but rather let everyone work cooperatively. You're not going to agree on everything, but quit fighting with each other and work for the good of the city and for the success of the second term of Mayor John Tecklenburg. Thank you.
Okay, we have Erin Minigan, and there's a Teresa Tidestrom. Charlie Smith, and then Cassian Drolet, and Muhammad Idris will be last.
Okay.
Thank you. Erin Minigan, representing the Preservation Society of Charleston. First, wanted to speak briefly to item number 1 under bills up for first reading. We really appreciate the city working with us to strengthen the height district ordinance, and we were so glad that this process is being improved, so we're very glad to lend our support for that. I also want to speak to item number 9 under bills up for second reading regarding the Planning Commission's authority. As we stated at the previous council meeting, we are greatly concerned by the way this matter is coming before you. We feel you are making a decision that will greatly weaken the planning process, in doing so without engaging the stakeholders, without meaningful public participation, and with findings that are not based on data but hearsay. This is a knee-jerk reaction to one project, and we call for a stakeholder process to facilitate a conversation about what is appropriate given the gravity of this decision. We continue to urge for the creation of a task force to ensure the planning process is fair to everyone, and without it, we are just making rules without facts. In addition, we find it highly inappropriate to change the zoning code without a public hearing. We ask for this matter to be deferred to allow for proper procedure, including a public hearing, and for the Planning Commission to review it. This is one of the last meetings of this council, and we urge you to not have your legacy be a weakening of the the planning process. To be clear, we do not feel that this helps the little guy, the small business owner, but simply lowers the threshold for sophisticated developers to get what they want. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Teresa?
Welcome.
Hi, I am Teresa Tystrom. I am the Executive Director of West Ashley United. I am not going to read from my phone. I'm going to speak from my heart. And first, congratulations. Second, I am here to hold every one of you accountable for West Ashley, for everything that happens, for the appointments to the Planning Commission, to the budget, to every cent that comes into West Ashley. This is a new evolution into West Ashley. We are the strongest hold and voting bloc. That being said, we have to work with every part of the city because we are one. I was born downtown, grew up on James Island, and now in West Ashley. We have to work together, cohesively, together, not behind the scenes, but together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Charlie?
Smith?
Good evening.
Welcome, by the way, as a citizen of Charleston, Charlie's property just annexed into the city at our last meeting.
Thank you all, and Rob and I are very pleased to be once again, residents of the city of Charleston. We thank you all for your vote on the annexation recently. I'm here tonight because there have been some assertions recently that the supermajority requirement for the city council, 75% majority vote that's required to overturn a negative vote of the Planning Commission, that it is somehow rooted in Jim Crow segregationist era, in that era of our city's history. It is. It absolutely is. There's no question about it. But I'd like for you to consider this tonight. That supermajority requirement is just a tool. But it happens to be the most powerful tool that the citizens of this city have to make sure that we do not have poorly planned, poorly vetted projects getting through this council for approval on a simple majority vote. And the people of this city have spoken out very, very loudly recently on this very issue. We do not want bad planning, bad development getting passed and built in this town without the proper vetting and without the proper planning. So like any other tool, that particular tool in the hands of the wrong people can be very dangerous. It's no different than any other tool. But the difference here is that you all control who has the power to use that tool. You appoint those people and you can remove them at any time. So it's not so much the tool that's the problem, it is in whose hand is the power to use that tool, and y'all control that. So I'm asking you all to please don't take the tools away. If we need to improve the planning process, if we need to better educate the planning commissioners so that they understand better how to use those tools, let's do that. Don't take tools away that we can use to make this city a better city for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Cashin Drolet, 2 Craven Avenue, representing Historic Charleston Foundation. Historic Charleston Foundation continues to oppose the ordinance amendment regarding the votes required for City Council to overturn a disapproval recommendation from the Planning Commission, item number 9 under bills up for second reading. HCF continues to oppose this change primarily because we believe it politicizes the planning process and it removes an important safeguard to the planning process, the supermajority vote. If there is a systematic problem with the planning process in the city of Charleston, then we need to take a wholesale look at the entire process. And we stand ready to work with council, city staff, planning commission members, and other stakeholders to take that comprehensive look at the planning process. With proper public input, we can identify areas where we can improve so that we can assure that the planning process is fair to all citizens.
Thank you very much. Mohammed?
Mohammed Idris.
Evening, Mayor, City Council. I want to thank this council, Councilman Moody, Robert, Wayne, my friend over here. Y'all did the best job that this council have seen, and we're going to miss you very much. I'm hearing people talk about planning. If you didn't change it in 130 years, would think you're going to be better now. Y'all did a wonderful job, and planning's supposed to be in y'all hand. It's not about race. It's the poor people that have been taken advantage by the rich. A person came in here and called Councilman Moody a crook, and they voted to get him out. They voted to get him out. I look at this mayor as Judas Iscariot, who sold Jesus out for 30 pieces of gold. 30 pieces of silver. He is the most crookedest mayor that I've ever known, and I've stayed in some city. Chicago and New York. This man is a crook. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, that's the end of our citizens' participation period. Would someone else like to be heard? If it pleases council, I have 2 individuals that would still like to be heard during citizens' participation. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think any of us would allow anybody to call one of us that, and I don't think you should be called that either.
Well, thank you
So I think
kindly.
that we need to make sure that the decorum in 2020 is that we don't have any name calling going forward. Let's keep it straight to the facts.
Well, I appreciate that. I try to be more liberal, to use that word, when it comes to comments about myself. Thank you. Mr. Bullwinkle? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Lawrence?
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. My name is Arthur Lawrence, and I live at 210 Fishman Street. And I would like to thank all those council members that are here for the fantastic job that you have done in the past. In the community, thank you. And what we have to think about when people come before council criticizing council and criticizing the mayor, they need to go home and take a close look in the mirror and look at their past and look at what they've done for the city to move everyone forward. You don't come in here to criticize and to tear the system down. It took us 90 years for those doors to open up. When the doors open up, it opened up to everyone. But first, you have to look at yourself before you criticize anybody else and see what work you have done for this community and the city of Charleston. And you have to walk in those councilman's shoes and walk in the mayor's shoes to understand what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bullwinkle?
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, my name is George Bullwinkle. My address is 205 King Street. I work at Next and Pruitt. I'm a representative for the Epic Center owners. I'm going to pass this.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to briefly address the agenda item, third reading of the agenda item tonight. After hearing City Council's concerns and questions last week, I guess Tuesday night, Mr. Waring in particular wanted to go ahead and just passed out a letter that we've been working on. The first concern that we addressed, and there's a map in the packet that's coming around as well, is the height along Orleans Road. We've gone back, worked with the planners, and looked what we could do, and what we're suggesting tonight is to put a 5-story limit up to 100 feet from the right-of-way of Orleans Road. At that point, the limit will go up to 9 stories, so there'll be that little bit of a setback, and that'll be the district that we talked about last time. We're also in agreement, as you said, and worked on the language, as was requested, to show where you could go up to 18 stories. If council remembers, the mayor, that what we ended up saying was 40% of this blue area could go between 15 and 18 stories, up to. The rest would have a maximum of a 15-story height limitation. The third issue that we wanted to address was the affordable housing, and we understood how important that was. The city council, the mayor, and staff. What we're proposing right now is to continue with the 30 years, then to increase that up to 99 years if we're able to work with the city and look at a plan, whether it's ground leasing, cash, public financing components, either with the city, federal government, or third party, nonprofit, to increase that duration up to 90 years. At the end of that 90 years, what we would then do, up to 90 years, is notify the city within 12 months of that period of deed restriction going away, and to sit down and negotiate again up to an additional 30 years to keep it into affordable, attainable housing. And just so council can remember and the public at large, what we're... Sure.
We need to hear this because it's on our agenda for this evening. Please wrap.
Yes, sir. I'll make it very quick.
Yeah.
As the public would know, what we propose right now is for the initial 1,225 units, 15% of that would be attainable, affordable housing. Within that, anything above that 1,225 number of units, the delta above that, 20% would then come into that category. 33% of that would be at 60% AMI, 67% would be up to 120 AMI. One of the council members asked, what does that really mean? What it means is of the planned residential units, which 184 would be affordable or attainable, and of that number, 61 would be designated for up to 60% of the AMI, and 123 would be up to 120% of the AMI. And again, we hope we address the council's concerns as it relates to duration by taking it potentially to 99 years with an additional 30-year window above that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard? All right. So next on it. You already had your turn, so I'm going to ask you to come back next time. Oh, it's anybody new. Thank you. All right, so unless there's further comment from council, we'll proceed with our council communications with a discussion and request for the legal department to draft an ordinance that states that the city will not contract work to any business that has donated to current city office holders during a current election. This is requested by Councilmember Griffin. Councilmember Griffin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made this request to be put on the agenda a couple of months ago now, and needed an opportunity to sit down with our legal staff and corporation counsel to discuss this matter. There is a pertainable state law, and I'm going to read it real quick. It's not very long. And kind of tell you that we had a great meeting with legal yesterday afternoon, and asked Mr. Ardina and Ms. Borden to draft what could be a municipal law that mirrors this state law, but gives us an opportunity to put some teeth to it. Because I'm going to read this to you, and you're going to see that it's kind of vague. And then I'm just going to kind of briefly touch on just a couple of points, the reasons why I asked for this to come forward. The state law is The restrictions on contributions by a contractor to a candidate who participated in awarding the contract. So the basis of this argument and the reason why I asked for it to be on our agenda is because we have a public official who's able to give contracts without it going through a bid process. And tonight we're going to vote on amending our bid process a little bit and increase that threshold to, I think, from $40,000 to $50,000 on the amount of the contract that can be awarded. And this would be a non-competitive contract, so something that isn't put out for bid and doesn't necessarily go through our procurement process. The state law reads that no person who has been awarded a contract with the state, a county, a municipality, or a political subdivision thereof, other than contracts awarded through the competitive bidding practices, may make a contribution after the awarding of the contract or invest in a financial venture in which a public official has an interest in that official was in a position to act on the contract's award. No public official or public employee may solicit campaign contributions or investments in exchange for the prior award of a contract or the promise of a contract with the state, a county, a municipality, or a political subdivision thereof. So basically what this law is stating on the state level is once you have been awarded a contract through the non-competitive process, you should not be making campaign contributions. There is no time limit associated with this law right here. It just says you shouldn't do it. That to me is a little bit squirrely. Me personally, and I'm asking council to consider the fact that our election process has really, it takes up several months now, and it's very, very expensive. This election cycle was 1.7 million. The last one was over $2 million of spent money. And I am not sure that every person who donated to those campaigns locally are doing it for the reason, sheer fact that they just want to see somebody get into office to do a good job. I would bet, me personally, that a few contractors are donating for the fact that it could maybe be beneficial to them as contracts come up in the city. And I think that's wrong on every way you look at it. Now, we have a state law here. It's an ethics, Chapter 13, Ethics, Government, and Accountability. But it could take months and months and months for anything to happen on that. I think it would be great if our city had a law that mirrored this, followed every one of these state procedures, but we could actually apply a penalty municipally to do this. We could give a $500 fine to somebody who does this, and it would keep people of the state of mind that in no way, shape, or form does any campaign contribution will it lead to any special treatment when it comes to a contract. I'm not saying this has been done before. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. I just think as these elections get more and more expensive, and people who have 10 different LLCs are able to donate to a campaign, you know, there is a potential there that it could be taken into some sort of advantage, and that's a bad situation. And I hope that our city could be on the forefront to say, we'll never accept that in this city. We'll never, ever accept that. And if you ever think that a donation to a campaign is going to lead you to have any sort of advantage in the procurement process, non-competitive wise, it isn't going to happen. No municipalities in South Carolina have adopted the state law. However, there are other municipalities who have laws in place. Lehigh, or I think that's how you say that. Sorry. There's a county up in Pennsylvania that has a law that is actually pretty interesting, and I'm happy to pass this out to all of council so that everybody can look at it. And see, there is another one here in Allentown. I just think this is an interesting concept, really, to be honest with you. I think this is something that deserves a little bit of our attention, and I'd love an opportunity to discuss this with you as a body. To be honest with you, if the state law, if council feels that the state law is adequate the way it is, I'm actually perfectly happy with it, to be honest with you. I just thought this was something that, especially after we went through the audit process and we looked at procedures and the awarding of contracts and the procurement process, and we have NOVAC, the NOVAC group that is looking at our procurement process, it would be a good idea to look at this as well. And I appreciate your time, and like I said, maybe Corporation Council can touch on what I asked for the next meeting. Just pretty much a simple city ordinance that looks a lot like the state one, that maybe we could add a little bit of teeth to and make it something that make sure that contractors don't think they have any sort of advantage by giving to campaigns. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Would you like to make a
I'm
response?
happy to answer any questions. I think Councilmember Griffin has possibly been going to law school at night because he's definitely described this situation very well. So, but if council is so minded, we could draft up an ordinance along the lines of the state law, and we could add, it would be a city ordinance, we could add a enforcement provision to it, which would be, as Councilmember Griffin said, a penalty, and it would be a municipal court violation.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions of Councilmember Griffin, I guess, or Ms. Herdina. The first thing that occurred to me was, we're
Try to
saying
pull it a little closer, if you would.
will not contract work to any business that is donated to current city office holders during a current election. So, first question is, the next election, okay, but if a business had donated in one election and then didn't donate in the next election, are you dealing with that?
That's why our state law doesn't have a timeline, and that's why I think it would be a good idea for us to sit down and discuss that. Technically, the way the state law reads, you could argue that if you donate to a campaign, you should never get a contract.
Right, that's why I'm asking you the difference. And then the other thing that just came to my mind in terms of the word business, would you also apply that prohibition to the business owners as individuals or board of directors, or how would we really drill down to?
I think at least initially, and we can draft it up to see, but under state law, it's no person, which has a very broad definition as to who it would apply to. So I think that would be one of the questions that we could draft it up, put in a definition of person in there, and see whether you want to make it expansive or more restrictive. We could do either one.
Responsibility would be to enforce this prohibition. Who would enforce it?
Yes. So who would be responsible?
Who would enforce it?
Who would enforce it? Well, it would probably, we'd have to set up some sort of internal system to track this, and that was one of the things that we talked about that we need to think about further, and how we would track, and we'd have to compare reporting on the state level with what's happening as far as internal contracting procedures. So there needs to be that process that's developed, and then we would go through our usual process of probably having someone maybe in the business license department or one of the other regulatory departments to issue the citation and prosecute it in livability court.
Anyone else like to be heard? Councilmember Griffin, did you want to be recognized again?
I'm sure that we have a way that people can report municipal violations now, right?
Yes, but I think what you were saying is how to connect.
Right, but
Right.
there would be a way that somebody
Yes,
could report it.
yes.
I mean, we have hotlines and tip lines where people can report things.
Right.
All right. Any other comments or suggestions? Is it the pleasure of council for legal department to draft such an ordinance to mimic the state requirement?
I'll make a motion that we do that. I don't see why we would not want to be in congruency with the state. I mean, why not?
Right.
So I'll make the motion that
Sure.
ask staff to go ahead and do it.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I think we can do it for the purpose of discussing it.
I would like to have a motion on the record whenever going forward, a council member brings forward a request for us to draft an ordinance. I'd kind of like to have the concurrence of council that this is a matter that's worthy of taking forward. Sir?
Is that a requirement the same thing as mayor? If you're going to bring forward that we need to approve it?
That's your microphone.
No, sir.
You can't do it.
Point made. Councilmember Mitchell?
No, I said, even if we have the motion made, we can do it for the purpose of have the attorney to draft it, and we can have it so we can have a discussion on it to bring it back and we can discuss it further.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Griffin, and then Gregory.
I don't have a problem, Mr. Mayor, with doing it this way, but I honestly think we need to put something on the books because I don't know if it's fair for you to just stand up there and make the rules go fly on the spot like this. So if we're going to change the rules, January coming up, I think this is a good time to do it. We need to have something on our books that say, our council rules, if you're going to be a council member and bring something to Corporation Council for them to draft, you need to bring it to council and kind of be heard in front of council. But I think Councilmember Moody kind of made a good point. Does that fly for you too when you want to bring something like the short-term rental ordinance or the hotel ordinance? Shouldn't you bring it to us for us to discuss before it comes to the floor as well?
I think that's the administration's duty. But as we've witnessed over the last couple of years, there have been cases when council members have brought things forward. We have a lot of time pressure on our staff, including our legal staff, and I just would like to have a general concurrence from council that this is a good direction of something we want to spend staff time and legal time on to bring back an ordinance for your consideration. Councilmember Gregory had his hand up next.
Mike, the mic.
Mike?
The state law would be applicable now in its current form?
Yes, it would be.
Okay, so what are we doing?
Well, I think the concern that Councilmember Griffin had was, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that there's really very little enforcement of the state provision.
Okay.
And that by enacting basically a similar type ordinance, we can't be inconsistent, but consistent with what the state law provides, that there would be we would be looking more closely at the issue than the state government is.
Okay.
That is my understanding of the purpose.
Okay, and secondly, in terms of introducing proposed legislation, because I think that's what we're talking about here, I always thought that there are specific procedures in our current code, okay, for how we do that. Are we changing that?
I don't think there are specific procedures.
I think there are. And okay, maybe we can check it, but I think there are provisions in there with respect to how legislation is introduced from this body. And I'll go back and I'll do a little more thorough reading myself. Well, if it isn't in there, I think putting a screening process, because that's really what we're talking about, that if I, for example, want to propose legislation, that in order for that to go forward, we would have to get a yay from the administration. I think that's what we're saying.
I'm saying a yay from council.
I mean, a yay from council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've had this discussion before, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to bring it forward to y'all in our council rules in January. But my point is about dedicating staff time. And I think I made this point before, Councilmember Griffin, that if, I know you have pretty good legal authority here this evening, complimented by council, but if you wanted to bring forward an ordinance as part of your, on our agenda from council communications, you certainly welcome that. But I just don't feel it's appropriate for staff to spend an inordinate amount of time, which has happened a few occasions in the last couple of years, without council having some consensus that this is an issue, an ordinance that we would like to pursue. That's all. Councilmember Griffin.
I agree with you. In fact, I'll go and I will copy and paste that on our city, and I'll bring that to the next meeting. How does that sound? It's only going to take 5 minutes, so I don't mind doing it myself, really.
I'm happy to devote the staff time if it's the will of council, is what I'm saying. Yeah. Councilmember Seeking?
Just briefly, I just think this whole idea of pre-screening proposed ordinances that aren't even drafted yet is going to put us in a really big quagmire. It's going to slow the process down. Someone might hear something and might not like it, so we vote not to put forward something, and then it gets drafted and through the process. I just think we're about to put another layer of bureaucracy into the process of doing our jobs. And I mean, a lot of what we do in this room is we ask people to put it in writing so we can look at it. We've done it.
Right.
On the last 5 city council meetings, every time we've had something or in a committee, we've had it, said, no, let's see it in writing. So pre-screening ordinances based on ideas without seeing them is just going to add a lot of load right here. And I get the idea that, staff will have some things, but I mean, again, that's sort of part of the job of all of us. Do something that is for the betterment of the city. Don't take inordinate amounts of time. If there is, any one of us can comment, including you, Mr. Mayor, that we need to sort of take the load off. But pre-screening it's going to really add some load onto this council that you'll see some meetings that will go on for a long time. So I just be careful what you ask for. You might get it, and then we might not love it. So let's see what it looks like.
All right. We did have a motion on the floor, and it was seconded.
And,
Yeah, Councilmember Lewis?
that's why we have an agenda committee.
Right.
Anytime you want to present something to city council, it goes before the agenda committee, and the agenda committee goes over it, then it brings it to city council. So, I mean, that's where it needs to go, to the agenda committee before it comes here, to get on the agenda. And if the agenda committee put it on the agenda, then it'd be put on there for discussion. And the other thing is, what he wants to do, mirroring something after the state law, long as it does not supersede state law, because we cannot make an ordinance if it's above what the state law says. So we just have to be careful on how we draft these ordinances and what we put into it. But possibly it could be done.
And Councilmember Griffin?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that when you talk about drafting this or for January, one other thing to look at, it may be helpful to have a council member on the agenda committee. I know we've talked about that before, but I think it would be a good idea for somebody on council to be informed of what's going on, what's coming, what's deferred, what's not, what the thinking of staff is. We don't really have that, and by the time we get our agenda, that's really close.
Chairman of Ways and Means Committee is the person that's supposed to help set the agenda. Now, whether he or she does that, I can't say, but I know I've put stuff on the agenda and it was intercepted before it even got before the agenda committee and got to the mayor. So we have to be careful on how we do things.
Councilmember Gregory?
Just a point of clarification. You are also a member of council.
Yes, sir.
When you're doing the agenda, when we're doing the agenda, okay, we do have a representative from council there, which is the mayor. I think sometimes we forget, while you are the mayor, you're also a member of this body as well.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. One of 13. That's right. We had a motion on the floor to ask, the ayes have it. Thank you. So next is our council committee reports. First is Committee on Public Works. I'm going to call on Councilmember Griffin as he officiated.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a record time meeting. I think we got in and out in under 10 minutes, and hopefully council will be that way tonight. We did approve two items. We dedicated a portion of Stripe Lane sidewalk. There are 48 lots. The sidewalks have been approved by our staff, and then we approved the contract to fix the new drainage pipe along Lord Calvert Drive. Both those items passed unanimously, and I would move for the adoption of the report.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, Committee on Public Safety, Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met this afternoon in record time as well. We had one item on our agenda, and that was to amend Chapter 2, Section 56 of the Public Safety Committee definition and its rules and responsibilities by adding paragraph D to read as follows: The Committee on Public Safety shall review and make recommendations regarding judicial candidates submitted by the mayor prior to the mayor's formal nomination of a judicial candidate to council for its approval. Paragraph E was old paragraph D, it just got shifted down to another paragraph. The committee recommended approval of this change unanimously.
Councilmember Gregory.
A question. Okay, you review it and you don't agree with it, then what?
So I think what the idea was for the mayor to submit what he thought a number 1, 2, or 5 folks to the committee to review, and we make a recommendation regarding that person's qualifications. And we come back and say we approve that person or we disapprove that person.
But are we...
The council gets to vote on that nomination as a body. So we'll come out with a recommendation and one way or another.
I think that's more of a courtesy, isn't it? I think the mayor has that authority, if I'm not mistaken.
He can still make the recommendation, he can still present the person's name to council with the understanding that if the committee came out with a negative recommendation, you would know that the committee came back with a negative recommendation. If we came back with a positive recommendation, we would say you had a positive recommendation. And then you can question, well, why did we vote that particular way? And we could explain the committee's concerns.
It adds a level of scrutiny. Councilmember
I mean,
Mitchell.
even going through that with the, what you're planning on doing, I hope that we look at it very seriously and doing it wise with everyone, racial-wise, just making sure that whomever the candidates are, that we're going to have a very diverse problem with the candidates, because this is something very seriously when you get into that, even a person sitting up there as a judge. And we got to remember that in the city of Charleston, we are still talking about diversity. We are always pushing diversity, so that's what I want to look for, even when you bring these people to us to be voted on or voted upon. And that's something I'm very serious about with that.
And still, it originates from the mayor's office, so he's going to come up with...
So, even to the mayor, I'm saying, this is what I'm looking for, and I know the mayor knows the way I am with certain things, so this is what I'm looking for, even with the people that's coming, the candidates that are coming, that we'll have a balance, racial balance with those candidates coming, and make a decision from that.
Yes, sir. I heard you loud and clear. Councilmember Wagner.
Yeah, this one's not going to be real rocket science, okay? We have 10 candidates. Mayor and staff whittle them down to, say, 5. Then it comes to the committee. The committee can then assist in making the recommendation to the council, and it shouldn't, it prevents any potential appearance of a problem. I mean, it's getting double vetted is what's going to happen. First by the mayor and staff, then by the committee. And so you would have, as a council, reasonable assurance that you probably got the best candidates coming to you. Either that or, public safety committee's lost their mind or whatever, which is possible. But anyway, I just thought I'd try and bring that.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our Committee on Ways and Means. Councilmember White has been excusing. Councilmember Lewis moves for the adoption. Is there any discussion on any of those items? We'll keep in place the the abstentions of Councilmembers Moody and Gregory and myself.
And also, we have a few deferred items that we will keep on here as well.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Another executive session coming.
For the end. Yes. That's going to be part of it. Right.
Okay, so next is bills up for third reading, which is the matter of the PUD for, gives the address, but of course is known as the Epic Center or Citadel Mall. You have the letter from Citizens Participation Period. There wasn't a lot of time since the last meeting. You know, we met a week ago and we were off Thursday for Thanksgiving, and most people took Friday off as well. So we just literally got this back from them. We discussed this the next day as we said we would at the last council meeting, but it took a little bit of discussion back and forth, and so this is now before you with this modification. Councilmember Moody and then Jackson.
I appreciate the turnaround on this, and it sounds to me like, or it feels to me like we have covered about exactly how, I mean, we didn't give Mr. Bullwinkle much time up here to explain what the affordable, how that might work. I'm not sure that I'm completely clear. I mean, I thought all the other stuff was addressed appropriately, and I'm willing to vote or make a motion, and maybe should we put something on
We have a
the floor
motion
before we
first,
have a
before
discussion?
We got that. And-
Well, I think
But,
it'd be appropriate from him, but I think first I'd like to hear from our staff as to what they're seeing, what they're thinking, and then maybe
Right.
let Mr. Bullwinkle respond to that.
So I'm going to look to Mr. Lindsay and perhaps to Ms. Johnson, if she's here, if she would like to weigh in on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you all know, as I briefed you before, this has the potential for the most affordable housing of any PUD we've ever had, the potential for it. And the requirements meet, or in this case exceed, what we get out of any PUD typically. So as Mr. Bullwinkle stated, 15% of the housing is to be attainable. Exceeding their base amount, when they go over the 1,225 units, should they do that, they go up to this higher level of affordability requirements, including 33% at the 60% level of AMI, which is some of the most affordable housing you can get. So that's exceptional. To my knowledge, we've never had a PUD offer that level. Of course, it is within that specified time frame. They expire after a certain period. And we heard from council at the last meeting a week ago that y'all wanted more time. And what the applicant has done is they've said, we'll give more time if a partner steps up to the plate to assist us in that, whether it's the city or another third party. And that's a common thing that we often do. Of course, the city and the housing authority often partner with developers and partner with landowners. So from a staff standpoint, we recommended for this at the Planning Commission. We feel like it's a strong affordable housing provision, as strong as we see in any planned unit development. And so that's why we feel like it's adequate and we endorse it. You could also ask the applicant here tonight to elaborate upon it further.
Councilmember Jackson was next, and Gregory and Wagner. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sort of inclined to want to move to defer this, but just because, as you said at the beginning, you know, we talked about this last week. We had the council discussion about what we hoped would be brought back to us, and it came on our desk this evening, and I understand that it's, you know, been discussed by the staff, but I don't think that the public has had a chance to even think about this with us. But I'm not going to make that motion right this minute, but it has occurred to me in reading item number 3 that we're not even, and then I heard another comment from one of my colleagues that we would like to fact check. Is there an actual firm requirement that there be residential development in this PUD?
So there is not the firm requirement that there be any specific use in this PUD. And the same exists with the base zoning presently. And with any base zoning, zoning does not, of course, it's a bundle of rights. It doesn't compel someone to do something. It can't require someone to build something through zoning. It enables something to be built. In this case, just like the current GB zoning, there is no specific requirement that they build the housing. The same thing is for office, residential, recreation, or anything else, just like the current GB zoning that they have today. What it does do is it enables those uses to be built if the market allows and the developer moves forward to do that.
What would enable the residential compared to other kinds of commercial? What are we doing to make sure that we get what we would prefer in that?
In this case, the base zoning that's in place, the GB allows 26.5 units per acre. In the PUD's proposal, it allows by its base allowance 1,225 units. So what it does is it assigns a density.
What is that compared to an acre?
I can't do the math of the existing.
Double the amount that GB would allow, or?
I don't have my calculator on me. Does anybody know what our current?
Okay.
What's our current acreage by right numbers? Do you know that? Times how many acres? We're doing math. Bear with us for one moment, council members. So 53 acres times 26.4, if anybody's faster on their calculator, would be their base entitlement today. Under 1,400 units. So the PUD is actually a reduction in the base number of units that are enabled on the property. If they exceed that number, if they go above the 1,225, then the stronger affordability component kicks in. So that's more affordable requirement than they have on the property today. In GB, there is no affordability requirement.
Right. But, okay, so they're incentivizing us to give them the PUD approval as opposed to us incentivizing them to build residential. I mean, in terms of an actual formula for what we may or may not see on the PUD. I appreciate that, every concept that you've worked on with the developer, and I'm not questioning their own, ideas and vision for how this property is going to unfold over the next 20, 30 years, but it does seem like we're putting a lot of opportunity on the table with the hope that the concept that has been promoted to us is going to take place. So that I think that's a real fact that the public really needs to appreciate with us, that we can only be but so controlling over a land use like this.
Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah.
Then Griff.
Just clarification. I think you put a 30-30-30 affordable housing proposal on the table. First 30 years, then after 30 years, right? We renegotiate I'm trying to figure out how that would work. And then even so, and this is probably a question for staff. Okay, let's say we do the 30, okay? In 30 years, we may be priced out of the market in terms of trying to maintain that affordability. Has there been any discussion in that regard? And secondly, if we want to maintain affordability in perpetuity, shouldn't we be negotiating that now to, one, make sure that Councilwoman's concerns are addressed, because we will be making it definite if we get into the ball game right now to make sure that there is in fact that affordability. 30 years, I don't know whether or not we're going to be able to afford to even negotiate an additional 30 years for the affordability. To me, the time is now.
Well, and it requires a partner.
Yes.
That's what
We're the partner.
that's what they're offered to us
So-
right now is.
So if I may, and ask Mr. Bullwinkle to address this, what your letter says is that you're increasing the term from 30 years to a maximum of 99. So when the first 30 years is about to expire, a year out, you'll give us notice and can extend it, but it's not necessarily for another 30 years. It's up to another 69 years, just depending on how the negotiation would go. Is that correct? It's not even locked in that it's another 30, 30, 39.
So, Mr. Mayor, I might not have been articulate in my letter, so I apologize. What we envision is actually when we sit down, right now we're saying the minimum it would ever be is 30 years. But when we sit down and we have a plan to come in with affordable housing, we would then say, we're at 30 years, would you like to go between 30 and 99? And if we can do that and have a partner that's willing to, and we can finance it, at the beginning we'll go 50, 60, 90, we'll put the deed restriction on. Whenever that term is to expire, 12 months before that deed restriction would expire, we'd come back and say, City Council, would you like to extend it another 30 years? So if I'm doing the math right, I think what we're offering, though it's in two tranches, is up to 129 years of affordable housing. And if I know that this is not my floor, I would like to say that the GB zoning right now, and Mr. Lindsay can correct me, the lot size for residential is 1,600 square feet. So while there is this density that's allowed, I can't remember what you said, Jacob, 25.6 or something, you cannot practically build residential on this property now because of the parking requirements and the lot size requirements. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I'm sure Mr. Lindsay could go further into that.
So are you now saying that you would extend to a maximum of 139 years, or 129 years?
What I'm saying is we would negotiate up front, 30 is the minimum, we would go up to 99 years, and then if the city would like to, on those units, as the time's being expired, we would sit down and ask if the city would like to go back up another 30 years.
Okay. We still have to wait for 30 years.
No, sir. We would, if the zoning went through, and I know this is very hypothetical, next year we wanted to put up residential units. We would come in and say, we're going to have 15% of them affordable, attainable with the 60-33 split. And we're proposing 30 years. If staff and city council came back, or a private sector or a grant, we would at that moment increase that up to 99 years. So you would know from day one the length, and then after that expired, we'd go another 30 years. I know it's a two-step process. And the reason for that is, originally, as far as we've known, no one's really, if the land's not purchased, has ever gone beyond 99 years. So what we did that, and then some people came back and said, well, could we try to do it again if it's working well? We said, sure, well, let's go back and add the ability to extend it another 30 years. That's how we came up with the concept, I believe.
Okay. Councilmember Wagner, then Mitchell, then Griffin. Wagner?
We already got part of it. We asked the gentleman multiple questions. He tried to do it in 2.5 minutes. I think we ought to give him time to answer the questions that we asked in the last meeting. I mean, we only gave him a week to come up with the answers, so we'll at least let him give them to us. I mean, we've got part of the affordable housing point. I think we made the point, or I know I made the point, that this isn't going to happen overnight. It probably won't happen in most of our lifetimes. This thing will be totally built out. I think we also figured out that Harry might still be here when it's done, and probably James. But those are the only two that I know I've probably almost got guaranteed 50, 60 years left in them. But anyway, no, I'd like to hear the rest of the story over here and give these guys, exactly what we ask of them. And I don't have the notes in front of me, so I'm not remembering them at all, but.
Well, I believe the main other points were addressed in number 1 and number 2 in his letter, but if you have a specific question for him, I'm sure we'd give him the time to respond. Yeah.
All these guys have their questions answered, because I think over the next 50, 75 years, somebody might come back and say, those guys made a good decision, or we made a bad decision, so. let's make sure we hear it all.
All right. Would you like to offer anything else about numbers 1 and 2?
I believe 1 and 2, we addressed that it was going to be 100 feet from the right-of-way of Orleans. The maximum height would be 5 to allow transition. And if members of council and the mayor, you have a diagram that shows the blue area is where you could have up to 40% of that could be up to 18 stories right here. That equates to about 13 acres. I know I got the acres and the stories mixed up last time around. Now, just for proportional sake, 23 acres right now is under roof when you're out there of the rezoned property. The last thing I'd like to say, just because I feel I'm compelled to, both the applicant here and the owner and some of the institutional money, when we came back and proposed the affordable housing language, even the second go-round, the immediate answer was yes. And I've represented people all over the state, and that's never been the case. They truly believe in the affordable housing. I believe, as Jacob said, it's the strongest affordable housing I've ever been a part of. And it is a significant component because of MUSC and the food and beverage and the intermodal facility that's planned there. So I just felt that I should put that on the record.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I thank Councilmember Mitchell and then Griffin.
Yeah, the affordable housing piece is a piece that I'm really interested in the West Ashley area. And I know a lot of things are moving West Ashley, and West Ashley is getting very, very, very expensive themselves, as the peninsula is getting. And that was my question when I asked at the last council meeting pertaining to the years. And when he mentioned the 30 years, and now we're coming back and say he's going to try to work with staff. But one thing with me, I like to see things up front and writing in the beginning, because I know I'm not going to be here, pretty soon. And I would like to see this in writing more than 30 years up front. I know it's going to be hard to do, but affordable housing is something that I worked with all my life. That's all I did for 35 years. And it's just that I know you all are trying hard to put it in there, but if it's not written down on paper, to me, right now there's more than 30 years, then to me, it's not going to happen. All these things, and it's going to come forth, and it's going to come forth, we're going to do it this, then. I just hate to be agreeing with all of that, because I've seen it happen too many times, that we agree with things that's going to come forth and never happen. And that's my dilemma on it now, is not seeing more than 30 years up front. Not waiting to see how we're going to do this or how we're going to do that before we put more of this in there and what staff going to do it. I wish staff could work with them now and try to say, okay, we came up with this, and the owner or the developer say, okay, we're going to put this in for 60 years now, then we'll come back with another 30 years. But that 30 years, I think we can do a little better than that. I think if you work a little harder, I think working in comparison with the city with a partnership, we can do a little better than the 30 years now. I think we need to work harder and try to get this on paper up front. And that's just my dilemma on it. That's my only problem with it right now.
Councilmember Griffin.
With all due respect, I think what they're giving us is more than adequate. And let me tell you why. Every time we've had something that we've gone to them about, they've extended the olive branch to us and helped us out. The first issue was the height. They went down on the height big time. The second issue was we don't want to disrupt the character of the neighborhood, and we don't want to scare the neighbors. So what do? Push the buildings back off the road. All of the height is going to be near 526, which is a major corridor that almost all of us are fighting for every day to get extended, which we already know there's more than enough traffic there. This is an opportunity to bring accommodations money to West Ashley. This is an opportunity to bring mixed use. This is an opportunity to create a PUD out of general business, which we always talk about. A PUD is the way to go. I just don't know how many times we can keep going back to them and saying, do more, do more, do more. They've done a lot. They've done more than any PUD, probably the history of the city ever. And I don't know if you've been over to the Citadel Mall lately. It's an eyesore. It really is. They've done as much as they can. They've promoted and got MUSC over there. We've got activity with HBO, and obviously Belk and Dillard's and those shops that Target, they still do well. But this property is one of the biggest eyesores in all of Charleston. It is. It is. Walk through that mall. Walk through that mall. Walk through that mall and look at all those empty shops. And it's not their fault. They've done an excellent job. Not, by the way, of all the bidders that bid on this property, they're the only local one. I trust this group is looking out for the city of Charleston because I know those guys. They've been here forever. They practice real estate here. I have total faith in this project, and I have total faith that this project is going to take many, many years to get accomplished. It's going to be very, very slow moving, just like you said, Councilmember Wagner. There's going to be so much dialogue between the city and this partner. This is really what this is. This is a partnership. And I wouldn't rather work with anybody than that group over there. And I think we've pushed it off long enough. I think deferring it is a bad example of what we're setting. We already broke up second and third meeting. That was a deferral in its own right. And those guys literally showed up at City Hall the next morning to work this stuff out. That's how eager they were. There's more than just us, the city, the Epic Center. We have a commitment to MUSC too. And we need to show them that this PUD is getting done because they have invested a lot of their own capital into that project over there. And I can easily see one day there being a hospital on that property. I really could see that. And I'd love to see that. I think that would be a great example, especially with some of the problems that we have downtown with flooding. To get a hospital or an extension of MUSC down there even more than what they've already committed to. This property has so many possibilities. We really need to roll up our sleeves and get it done tonight if we can. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to be heard? Councilmember Lewis and then Waring.
I've seen your questions, the planning department, but we have a housing department. Have Ms. Johnson been sitting at the table negotiating some of these deals? Because if she hadn't been there, she needs to be to the table because she's the one.
She's been involved in the discussions, I assure you. But Mr. Lindsay was our main contact with Mr. Bullwinkle, but we met just this morning, including Ms. Johnson, regarding the matter. If she has anything she would like to add, I called your name earlier. If you have any perspective you would like to add, I welcome Ms. Johnson to come forward.
So Mayor and members of council, as you think about a PUD, this is one of the better that we've seen. Typically PUDs, they don't want to go to 60%, whereas this group has. Usually it is at 80%. And usually we have 20 years versus the 30 that they're proposing. Having said that, where we have an opportunity to do better than we've done in the past, we want to do that. So oftentimes when we, the city, come in particular housing and community development, where we can, we offer financial incentives to the developer to help with the long-term affordability. We did not have that specific instruction or discussion relative to this particular project, but that is an option as well. Because typically, for-profit developers don't want to do the long-term affordability unless we can offset some of the costs that they're incurring as a result of producing that affordable and or attainable housing. And so that is also an option that could be considered. We also have developed, as you all recall, because you've supported it, the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation, which has a land trust that could also hold units for 99 years. And so those are options as well that you can contemplate. We have not put, as you would say, money on the table to help with the long-term affordability process or the cost that goes along with that. But in the past, we have also invested direct financial dollars in deals to ensure that that long-term affordability exists. Thank you.
And that option exists in what has been presented to us. As it says, at least 12 months prior to the expiration of an initial 30-year term, the city will be notified and have the option to extend the affordability period. So, without knowing what the future will bring and what deals will be like at that next future juncture, we not only have we have the right in order to extend this. I'm hearing up to 129 years, which is a little different from what your letter says. So I think that should be clarified. And that would take us a pretty long way. All right, Councilmember Ware. And then Seekings.
I'm going to defer to Seekings. I want to wait till last. Go ahead.
That's fine.
That's true. Councilmember
You're
Seekings.
pulling my trick, I get it, it's all good. You've learned well. You've learned well. Look, they're nodding. I just want to follow up very quickly, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members, about Ms. Shaw Johnson's comments that you just made, coupled with Mr. Bullwinkle's comments. You talked about the back end, Mr. Mayor. I think Mr. Bullwinkle was talking about the front end, and I want to talk about the front end. What he said was they're going to go 20 to 30, the bottom line at 60%, but before they present any housing component in this PUD, they're willing to sit down with Ms. Johnson and the city to try to extend it if they can get some participation from the city, from tax credits, or from equity partners. So they're setting the baseline at 30 plus whatever they can negotiate on the front end and extending it now. We've heard 99 plus 30. I think the important part for us to remember is what's been presented tonight, which is that front end 30.
Front end
30 is a starting point, and then
That's right.
Ms. Johnson just put the component in that we haven't talked about, that she and her team can then sit down with them. If the city's going to participate, great. If there's other opportunities that can come through her office or through third party, I see some nodding. Am I on the right track here? I think that's the important part, and I too agree that they've gone a long way. Let's get this going, and then let's see, because to Councilmember Jackson's question, they're not obligated, nor is anybody obligated to build any housing, so that's still a component that's going to come through Mr. Lindsay, through everybody else, of what they're going to build. If we leave it at GB, I mean, this could become, one big fat bar place, right? I mean, just nothing but bars. You're not going to build houses. So I do think they've worked really hard. It's an important project. They've given a lot. They gave in 100% on the height without anything back. Yet. Now, I think the questions will come when it comes to housing, but I think let's get them going. I'm ready to vote for this tonight with the understanding of what that 30 years is, and really what Ms. Shaw Johnson just said in her comments, that there's good opportunities for us to partner going forward. So I just want to make sure we don't miss the front end, not the back end opportunity.
Understand.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We talked about in terms of how they have worked hard. And they certainly have worked hard, and I thank them for making the adjustments that Mr. Bullwinkle explained tonight. But we haven't worked hard enough. And the reason I say that, the reason they can't definitively say longer than 30 years is because we as a city has not invested into the project. Again, this is just as important to West Ashley as Charleston Place was to the peninsula. Over 40 years ago, the city put $10 million into Charleston Place, in addition to building a parking garage. That $40 million today, that $10 million today would be worth over $40 million today. And we're asking them to go 99 years on affordable housing to help displace a community, or communities, I should say. These communities have a right to feel threatened. Orleans Woods have a right to feel threatened. The areas around Savage Road have a right to feel threatened, because if this economic juggernaut is successful, it'll move communities. I mean, speculators are calling people, homeowners in Orleans Woods right now, wanting to know if you want to sell your house. It's just not the peninsula anymore, gentlemen and lady. That's what's happening now. And to say 30 years from now we have an option to discuss whether we want to buy. I got on the Planning Commission 25 years ago. Daniel Ireland, and I got on it because I thought it would be tremendously interesting to see a city develop. Daniel Ireland was large, or a little slightly larger than the peninsula of Charleston. I wanted to, normally you're born into a city. You don't get to see a city unfold. It's been marvelous to watch Daniel Island go from a farm, frankly a plantation, until what it is today. But that's been 25 years. Now, can you imagine going to the now developer of Daniel Island, actually it's the original developer that's still there now, basically, and saying, we like to buy whatever affordable units were put there 25 years ago? Well, that's what we're talking about. We have the example in the city. The type of appreciation that, if successful, that will take place, it would be unaffordable for the city to buy. This affordability period has to be cut now. And the reason these developers, in my opinion, I don't speak for them, how much money, this should be a pretty easy answer, how much money has the city invested into the Epic Center? Ms. Wharton, you're our CFO. None. None. Now, if we had that same answer for Charleston Place, it might still be a field. So this is just not the mayor's responsibility, it's all 12 of our responsibility. For that affordability period to be extended, we need to put millions of dollars in. And I'm gonna give an example. I asked Ms. Shaw Johnson, and she didn't know my motives, because I didn't know my motives. We have already committed to projects, and I won't call the project's name, but our affordable housing projects that we're using with the $20 million bond that we all worked so hard to get. There's one development, I'm talking, private development, nonprofit, that kind of thing, applying for tax credit, where we are putting in $35,000 per door, per apartment. The city of Charleston, out of the bond that all taxpayers are going to be paying back, we're putting in $35,000 per door. Now we're asking the 15% of roughly 1,200 units will come to about 180 units. We're asking these people to go longer, and we hadn't put one dime per door. Not one dime. And we expect the developer to come up with all of this themselves. Certainly we have incentivized by giving additional floors, which will be cost effective when they factor in the market rate units. But by the same token, to extend that affordability period, the city has to have some dollars per door.
I hear you loud and clear. May I comment or respond?
Sure.
Because Councilmember Seekings is really making the point as well, that this is now rather than later, and the way I read it first is a little different than the way Mr. Bullwinkle explained it, and so they're guaranteeing 30 years, but there's nothing preventing us from sitting down right now and having their first affordable housing having a period up to 99 years if we put some skin in the game with you.
Correct.
Is that a good way to put it? And so we can do that now rather than later.
Okay, my point is, we need to burn the midnight oil a little bit longer. I agree with Council Lady Jackson. We need to defer this until the next meeting, which is the 17th, and we find ways to put skin in the game. How do we expect a development that's going to generate hundreds of millions of dollars? By the way, Councilman Griffin, hospitals don't pay into TIFs. So the TIFs go there, they're not going to be in it. So we need to work out a number per door on these potentially 180 units, and hopefully have an MOU. That could be done between now and the 17th, because everything else in this PUD, I think we agree with. And I think the developer has gone yeoman's duty in trying to think out of the box and saying, yeah, we want that affordable housing there too. And Mr. Bullwinkle gave great examples of some of the employees that's going to work there that hopefully will also live, work, and play in the same site. But we haven't done our part as a city. We've had conversations. None of these affordable housing projects will contribute economically to the tune potentially of what the Epic Center has. So why are we going the extra effort? Why aren't we coming up with the dollars per door? We can do that between now and then. If we have to scramble it, listen, one thing we've learned to be good at, Mr. Mayor, doing those ad hoc budget committee meetings, is we scramble pretty good with the taxpayers' dollar. We get a pretty good bang for the buck. And that's what we're talking about doing here to finalize this particular PUD. Now, I know planning department doesn't want to hear that. I know our staff doesn't want to hear that. I know the developer doesn't want to hear that. Councilman Seekings doesn't even want to hear this. But if we come up with, I've got some calculations here that I'm not going to blur into the microphone, but hopefully tomorrow and the ensuing days we can come up with some sort of MOU, Mr. Mayor, to give some assurances to the developers when it comes to the affordable housing being created, which will make it easier for them today to extend potentially, hopefully, to the 99-year period and not have to wait 30 years from now, 31 years from now, after appreciation has taken place, to see whether the financial wherewithal of the city can purchase something that, in my opinion, we won't be able to afford at that time. I'd be happy to be wrong, but anyway.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember
That's the
Gregory.
reason I asked whether Ms. Johnson was at the table from the beginning. Because if she was at the table from the beginning, I don't think we would have this discussion, because that's her feeling. She would be able to negotiate with the developers and let them know what housing can do and what they can't do. I mean, because she's going to be responsible for overseeing whatever the city put its money into. So she needs to be at the table, and, I mean, she's the smartest woman in the world when it comes down to housing. So she needs to be at the table.
She's been at the table, sir. Councilmember
Negotiate
Gregory.
those numbers, they're not just sitting there.
Right.
But negotiate
So-
those numbers.
Maybe I'd like Mr. Lindsay just to share a comment about the nature of a planned unit development, because what we're doing is setting up what's possible with this development. I don't think they're ready to break ground on a housing component of the development just yet, to where we would get down to the nitty-gritty of how many dollars the city would put in to enable the extension for so many years. I could be wrong, but they can build housing now under general business, as has already been discussed. This sets up the possibility of what is possible with the planned unit development, and what would happen with affordable product as being a part of future development, but doesn't, as we've noted before, doesn't require them to do a specific use. It just enables it anyway.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Gregory.
I've got to find out where folks buy their ice from, because their ice always seemed to be a bit colder than mine. And what I mean by that, what we just articulated, I think that's what I said initially, that what we need to do is start negotiating now, okay, so that we can have some skin in the game. And the same thing Councilwoman said. I just don't know why other people's ice is colder than our ice, but as long as we get what we want, it's okay, okay?
Councilmember Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate everyone's comments. That we've had this very good discussion about the Epic Center and the revitalization of Citadel Mall. Councilmember Waring said, reminded me about the fight that was going on at Daniel Island over 25 years ago, because folks did not want affordable housing. There was a bad word over on Daniel Island, and they fought it and to prevent that from happening. There was a wonderful 60 Sunday about affordable housing, and it is a curse on our society. It is getting worse by the minute, and we are discussing it. And my hat's off to Councilmember Waring and Lewis and Mitchell and Gregory about their continued fight about making sure that we fight for affordable housing. It is probably the most serious issue facing communities throughout the country. It really is, and we've talked about it, and we've talked about it, and the only way to guarantee government has control over affordable housing is to own the dirt and the bricks and mortars of that. Otherwise, there's other discussion about developers will come in, develop some property, and agree to dedicate a percentage of property for a specific period of time is all we can control on. And after that time, that period is going to lapse and it reverts to not being affordable housing. So the only way that we have 100% control over affordable housing is that we own the land and we own the bricks and mortars that provides affordable housing. We've got spotted affordable housing in West Ashley, and we 7 houses over in the Maryville, Ashleyville area, and we're working on that goal to increase that. and we're, West Ashley area is getting to that point, and this is sort of this mixed bag of success that we are revitalizing. And people are concerned about how we are revitalizing, because we need to do it in a way that makes sure that we protect our communities, and that's vitally important. We've got the limits on the buildings under control. This plan on setbacks and the height restrictions that are outlined in this letter are what we're looking for, and I think that this is going to appease a lot of folks as to how we're going to control the height on these buildings and the property being constructed. These folks have done everything we've asked them to do, and we will have skin in the game, because we'll come back at some point. We'll talk about garages and other things that can be built on this property. We want to do this right. This may be our one opportunity to get the Epic Center on the right trajectory that we want it to be on, so that it's done properly, that achieves the goal of revitalizing West Ashley and becoming the economic center of this community. Let's vote on this tonight. I think we've got the foundations of what we want. We've got this letter of the explanations that we have. We can sit down and negotiate with them on this extra 99 years plus on this property. I think that we're in the right frame of mind with this. I knew this was going to be an issue when it came up last week, and I thought, we should bring this up on the 17th. They've given us a framework on this, and I'm ready to vote on it tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to defer. I said I agree with Council Lady Jackson, but I didn't make the motion, so let me make the motion to defer.
Motion to defer. Do we have a second? Any discussion on the motion to defer? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. You want to call them over? Yeah, or show hands, whatever suits you.
Councilmember Shields. Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember Richards.
Aye.
Councilmember Wagner. No. Councilmember Gregory. Yeah. Councilmember Waring. Aye. Councilmember Seeking. Nay. Councilmember Shea.
Nay.
Councilmember Griffin.
Nay.
Councilmember Moody.
Nay.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Motion to defer does not pass. Back to the original motion for passage of third reading and ratification. I would just...
Mr. Mayor, I would incorporate in my original motion that we incorporate into the PUD documents the letter that was given to us tonight by Mr. Bullwinkle. No, that's all right. That's my motion.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, on readiness.
Any further discussion?
On readiness, Mr. Mayor.
Sir?
On readiness, I have a question.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Waring.
If we're going to vote approval, at what period of time is the city going to commit dollars to this project for affordable housing?
At what period of time?
Yeah, how much time are we allowing the city to come and commit dollars to this project?
I'm happy to negotiate with them as soon as they're ready to move forward with any housing development on the property, and to set guidelines getting ready for that day.
Are we going to enter into a MOU of some sort?
We could, yes, sir, absolutely. So the way I understand it, to take it beyond their 30 years, we would need to create a MOU and have that kind of nitty-gritty negotiation of us putting some skin in the game. And I'm ready to do that from day one.
Well, let me ask this to Mr. Bullwinkle. I have a question to Mr. Bullwinkle. If this passes tonight, what is the incentive beside the goodwill of the developers to move forward and enter a MOU for a longer period of time if the dollars aren't satisfactory?
Sure. For this project to be successful, we're going to have to come back to you for an MOU with the TIF as well. And the TIF, obviously, a lot of the increment will be created by this property, but a lot of that's going to happen through a public-private partnership on the development itself, the infrastructure. And if City Council's not willing to do that, then this project necessarily will not move forward as we all want to see it. So I actually see them hand in hand, or hand in glove, that we would come back, talk to you about the TIF as also part of the affordable housing MOU, and we would start, I believe we've talked to staff about starting that process literally tomorrow. And hopefully that first quarter of next year with both of these components in front of you.
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, they've been requesting our participation in a parking deck structure from the word go, and I've explained to them, we got to give the TIF district a little time to bake before we have some revenue stream from it that we could even, make those kinds of commitments. So I think it's a very valid point in case that this would go hand in hand with other commitments that the city will make with the revitalization of Citadel Mall. If that makes sense. Any further questions? Yes, sir, Councilmember Mitchell.
Mr. Mayor, that I hope that we do this sooner than later in getting with them pertaining to the affordable housing piece. And that's all the project, so far as I'm concerned, is a good project. I don't have a problem with the project at all. My thing is just want to make sure that I want to see this in place so far as a housing piece in place. And I think we need to start working with that, like yesterday, being proactive. I have seen too many projects that we said we're going to do, and it never happened. And that's what I'm thinking at now, because that's a big piece, that's a big project that's going on there.
Right.
So I think we need to do this like yesterday and get together with Ms. Johnson, because it's going to come back to my committee, I guess, to the Community Development Committee. So I think we need to work with this and start working with this now and start not waiting.
You good, Ms. Johnson? Ready? All right, she's ready.
Because I think wait, like my mother used to say, break down the wagon.
Yes, sir. Any further questions, discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm voting nay, and I'll tell you why. I want it recorded why I'm voting nay. It's because the city dollars aren't committed to this project. That's why I'm voting nay on this. The city dollars aren't committed to this project for affordable housing. That's the only reason I'm voting nay on this project.
Thank you. All right, next we have bills up for second reading. I think we have
I'm going to take, Mr. Mayor,
items 1 through
6, 1 through 8.
1 through 8 we'll take together.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
1 through 8.
Okay. We have a motion to take items 1 through 8 together for second reading. Is there any discussion on any? Do we have a second? Have a second. Do we have any discussions on? We're going to wait a minute. I did. I know, but we're going to take 9 separately. Yes, ma'am. We're taking 1 through 8 together, and then we'll come back for number 9. All right, any discussion on 1 through 8? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading and ratification, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now we'll go to number 9.
I'll make the motion so we can have a discussion on it. Move for approval, number 9.
We have a motion to approve number 9 by Mr. Mitchell and a second from
Councilmember Shealy.
Councilmember Shealy. Okay, the floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would prefer to move for a deferral of this amendment. I think that certainly my vote to give it first reading last week was based on the premise of we would have the time and the discussion opportunities to bring all the sides together that are, literally seeming to be pretty intractable at this moment in time about the philosophy behind this and the way forward. And frankly, whoever said it earlier tonight, we do have some improvements to make to our planning process. And I think that this is worthy of all the stakeholders in the city who care about land use and the way that we develop going forward into the city that we want to have preserved and protected and robust. It pains me to hear the intractability, as I said earlier, that we've got good reasons why we feel strongly about this change to the way of the 90-year way of the Planning Commission dealing with their recommendations, and when they give us an adverse one, it requires a supermajority. And I don't think it's the kind of decision, I know that there was an attempt at discussion, I guess. I personally wasn't part of it, not that that's important, but I think that, and as Mr. Waring said, Councilmember Waring said, nobody was coming to him to have the conversation. So I think that there is misunderstandings and missteps and hard feelings that are growing in what I've heard in my email box and talking to my colleagues about why this is such an important change for them to be championed, and I just feel like we need a bigger time and a bigger space to deal with this, and I think a week later is not the time out that I had understood when I voted to give it first reading last week. So I move to defer.
Councilmember Jackson,
In favor of having a discussion season, however we want to organize it. I don't think it needs to be called a task force, but we definitely need to have the parties that feel the most strongly about the way this ordinance turns out.
So Councilmember Jackson, if I may, and pardon me, your indulgence, please, council members, because I did intend to bring counsel to the legal counsel to the microphone before we started the discussion. If you remember, at the end of our discussion on this matter, and it had been a long night, and we were all kind of ready to leave, and someone raised a question, well, does this need to go to the Planning Commission? I think it was Councilmember Griffin, and I made the remark that I think according to our normal procedure that it would, and then I heard a number of comments. Well, it's taken a little while, but we drilled down, and some people would say, even on an initial glance, that this matter should go back to Planning Commission and have a public hearing. But on further, deeper review, I just want to turn over the microphone for a minute to Chip to share with us what he's investigated since the last week on this matter.
Yes, and this is going to make me look kind of bad, and I understand that. I've told people that I didn't think the Planning Commission needed to hear this under the AG's opinion. I think I told Councilmember Griffin that. I think I've told the mayor that. Well, I suggested that it go to the Planning Commission. Tonight when I got here, I was looking through the code. There's a section 54-944, which is right after 943, that says any amendment to the zoning ordinance. 943 applies to amendments to zoning regulations or zoning maps. And I told the mayor just before the meeting about this. 944 applies to any amendment to the zoning ordinance, and then 54-101 of our code defines the zoning ordinance to include all of Chapter 54. Under that 54-944, I think any amendment to Chapter 54 of the code has to go to the Planning Commission. Let me be very clear that under the Attorney General's opinion, accepting that is the law. You do not need a supermajority vote to overturn what the Planning Commission decides once it looks at it under 54-944. It doesn't require a supermajority vote or anything like that. So I'm not suggesting that we're following the same procedure as 943C. This just requires review by the Planning Commission. It doesn't, and I think it's study and a recommendation by the Planning Committee to refer it to the Planning Commission, because I think that's what 54-944 requires. And again, I apologize. I would have let people know about this before tonight. I sent an email to Susan at some point this afternoon, and it really wasn't on my radar as an issue until tonight.
All right, we knew about it.
I've tried to be above board about this, so I hope you trust me on that. So,
So, Councilmember Seekings and then Shealy.
Well, I mean, I was just going to bring up 944 too. I mean, I looked at it today, and I went back and looked at all the debate we've had about this, and I don't think Chip put into the record what it says. 944 says, unless initiated by the Planning Commission, all proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance to be pursued by the City Council shall, that's the word it used, be reviewed by the Planning Commission. And clearly, this is a Chapter 54 amendment. This is a Chapter 54 mandate. So
Right.
whether we like it or not, it's a procedural requirement. If we don't do it, we're just handing a silver platter to a lawsuit to somebody. And, you know, this council has been lawsuit averse when we can avoid it. In this instance, we know where the votes are headed. I don't think the votes are going to change. The debate may change, but we need to follow our own rules. And that's a rule that is right there and intractable. Unless we amend 944, we're going to be violating our own rules.
Right.
And that's plain to me. And I talked to Mr. Dean about that today. I mean, this is not new news, by the way, Chip, to some of us. We looked at this too. And so don't worry, we were going to do it for you if you didn't.
Shealy and then Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is this something where we're going to be asking the Planning Commission to have a special meeting? Is this going to wait till their next meeting, or what's the time length on this and where we go from here?
I think that would be up to the planning department. I'm not sure what their schedule is. I think the planning commission meets at the call of the chairman, or is it a majority of the planning commission?
Next planning commission meeting.
We tell them
It's December 18th.
Just have a special
Mayor, it's the December 17th meeting of Planning Commission, and that agenda's already set because there's a 2-week notice requirement.
December 17th or 18th?
18th. 17th is council, 18th is Planning Commission.
It'll be 2 weeks from tomorrow,
That's
and
correct.
you would be able to put this on their notice?
The ad has gone into the Post and Courier already,
All right.
24 hours ahead of time.
So we could ask for a what's that?
Tell them to meet the next day.
Yeah, we could call for a special meeting
No, they need
and have it in December. There's Councilmember Griffin.
With all due respect, we could call a special meeting, and I agree with Councilmember Waring. They need to meet before we meet again. That makes no sense for them to meet after we meet again, because then we're pushing this issue off into next year. This has been a very, very vocal council in regard to this. It's been brought up many different ways. It's been very tight votes every time. In fact, in the beginning of this year, I believe, we actually had something along those lines come up before, and it was 9-4, and we had sent it to the Planning Commission. They had disapproved it, and then we had to get a supermajority at that point. I don't know why if that were the case, this ordinance would have already changed hands at that point, because as Mr. McQueenie is stating, all we needed to do was send it to the Planning Commission and get their opinion on it. We've already had a vote in the affirmative on this, so this rule should be null and void at this point, to be honest with you, if we're going off of that narrative right there. My question is this or is this not a change to a text amendment? This is not a zoning matter. I have a hard time believing that. This is a text change, and I would love for our corporation counsel to speak on that matter.
All right.
Well, the Attorney General's office says it's not a change to the zoning regulation. It's not a zoning text amendment. It's not a zoning map amendment. And then to the other issue about why this process here, before the AG's opinion, we were operating under the assumption that we went through 943C, and that 943C was a zoning regulation. And I would under that reading, I would interpret 944 as what Planning Commission is supposed to consider when they give a report and recommendation. But given the AG's opinion, he distinguishes between the zoning ordinance and a zoning regulation or text amendment.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Council.
I would like to point out that the prior iterations that we've considered, if I'm correct, were amendments to the existing text that would change it from 3/4 down to something else. This iteration is to eliminate the requirement and remove it from the zoning code, right? Isn't that correct? So it is we've been on this issue many times before, I agree, but we're kind of coming at it from a different angle this time, for what it's worth. Councilmember Waring.
really is a trick. This is a trick. I can't tell you how disingenuous this is. Counselor, can you come back to the microphone and explain? We have sent this to the Planning Commission 3 separate times.
Yes, sir.
So how can you say we've never sent it to the Planning Commission?
Excuse me?
We've sent this to the Planning Commission on 3 different times. I mean, we've been...
Not this version of the ordinance.
What differs then?
And this is not a trick.
It is a trick.
Why do you believe it's a trick? You don't believe me?
This is why.
You don't believe what I just said?
When does the Planning Commission meet? Let me explain that. When does the Planning Commission meet?
Call me a liar.
Listen to me, and I'll explain it to you. Not Counselor, Mr. Lindsay, when does the Planning Commission meet?
When does it meet?
When does it meet next?
On December the 18th.
On December the 18th. When do we meet at the next council?
December the 17th.
So this council will not be able to decide this issue in 12/31 with that schedule.
Somebody said you can call a special meeting.
Isn't that accurate?
That's correct.
Is that what you're recommending, Council?
I said you can call a special meeting as city council by majority vote of city council.
All right.
So you can determine it by this.
You've come up with a solution.
It is not my intent at all. I have been above board and you've complimented me on how I've handled this. I have not tried to take sides on this issue.
Did I say it was a trick from you?
But don't.
Did I say it was a trick from you?
I mean, it makes me look like I'm part of a
No,
trick.
no, no.
I think that's the...
It is the schedule, it is scheduled, the Planning Commission and this administration knew that. Okay? This administration knew that.
Councilmember Waring, I think we can get a special meeting of the Planning Commission if this council is so minded and have it held before the next city council.
And what is your recommendation? What time frame would work? Given advertisements in the newspaper and the like.
Well, if it's a special meeting, it would just be 24-hour notice.
Why can't this be added to the agenda they already have? We still have 2 weeks. The agenda, 2 weeks would be tomorrow. You can't tell me that it's going to be that much of a strain on the Planning Commission to add one item.
Councilmember Griffin, thank you. I'll be happy to recognize you next time. Let's resolve that question first, and then I'll call on Councilmember Lewis. Could we not amend the agenda for the Planning Commission meeting by the end of the day tomorrow?
We're discussing that right now, Mayor. It's a 2-week notice for zoning amendments at Planning Commission, and the Post and Courier requires 24 hours ahead of that. Those have already been sent, of course, but maybe we could call and ask nicely.
Yes.
And I read through that portion of the ordinance, a zoning text amendment. This is not a zoning text or zoning map amendment. The ordinance speaks to those as far as public notice and advertisement of a public hearing. This portion of the ordinance, nothing requires that for a zoning ordinance amendment that's not a zoning regulation or zoning map. So you could hear it at the December 18th Planning Commission meeting.
Oh, good. Nice to have that opinion. Councilmember Lewis.
You know, I've heard somebody say we're rushing this. Former Councilmember Gallant and myself went to speak with the Attorney General, not the one we got now, but the one who's the governor. He was Attorney General then, 12 years ago. Same thing that Council put in his letter, said the powers lies with City Council. Now, we have the power to make any ordinance change that we need to make. But for some reason, they're beating this thing around. We're beating this thing under the Raleigh administration. This didn't come up under you. It came up here under the Raleigh administration. Now, we need to start looking at ordinances on the books. We just got some terrible rules and ordinances on the book. Seems like we can't change it. But I'm going to tell you what. I read 2 things in the Post-Courier in the last couple of weeks. Number one, and I got an email from the PAC group. From the PAC group, asking me to defer this until the new council come because we have gotten rid of some of the old ones who've been making trouble. Now, they didn't realize they've been sending me an email saying they got rid of me also. So this thing is just isn't the ordinance. This thing is political, and this thing is the group downtown who thinks they run the city, who needs to run for city council if they want to run the city. And the other article been in the paper is that the new council coming in and they're going to run this council the way they want because they didn't think that we did a good job. Well, I've been sitting there 24 years. And I'm sorry if they just decide to think that I wasn't doing a good job. But this thing is just political. Y'all talk about we want to change the planning department so the developers could have their way. We want to keep the planning department the way it is, because the people downtown below Broad Street want to run this city the way they want to run it. Because I've been sitting there for 24 years, and I couldn't count on both of my hands how many times we have overturned the planning commission. Our recommendation came here. We appoint the commissioners, we respect the commissioners, they have done a good job. So the thing that they're saying about this council, and we want to do this and do that, it's not true. We have never really fight to overturn no decision that the planning commission has made. But if we continue to keep running this city the way this PAC wanted, this political action committee wants to run it, and this city gonna be catching hell in the next few years. I can tell you that. So it's time the people who are elected to sit in these seats, they better read, they better wake up, and they better see what's going on. And they better do it quick. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
I'm looking at two council member elects to my right, Mr. Sackler and Mr. Brady. I could go for about an hour and explain to them right here, right now, what we're talking about. And it would take us about an hour because we have talked about this on and off no less than 3-4 times. So, to me, I have a tendency to respect exactly what that Attorney General decision says. And it says, this isn't a zoning matter, which means we should be voting it tonight, to me. Now, the second thing it says, because these were some of the arguments we had heard before, oh, well, everybody up in the northern tier of states does it. We heard at one time one whole state just about did it. But it said one more thing. It said they couldn't find anybody that was doing this except for us. And then they came back and they said, well, there was one time. But I don't know how any logical individual can read that Attorney General decision and come up with a decision that this is somehow, we basically, you recommended, we verified, said, okay, these guys will be the planning commission. Okay, we put them there. But we have no say. Just now we watched. Okay, come on, Jacob. Come on, planning department. When can we have a meeting? Well, that sounds to me like planning department controls the planning board, not us. So I'm a little bit upset about this because we have beat this horse multiple times. We've been here 9, 10 o'clock. I've missed more than one supper. Fat boys don't like to miss suppers, okay? But that's okay. Having said that, I think we ought to vote the darn thing and be done with it. We've got it through 2 readings, and to try, and it does look like a little sleight of hand. Oh, well, dang, missed it by a day. We couldn't get it in time to have the public hearing, or, oh, we couldn't get it there. That is not really sad at all to me. You want to move next council to the 19th? Hey, we could do that. But then that wouldn't be right either. So I think it ought to just vote right now, be done with it. Either that or y'all going to be here for a very long time, your first meeting, guys. A real long time. Bring a sandwich, maybe a pillow.
Afflicted with the same pain.
I mean, that's my advice to you. I will be happy to provide you. If you want to do a little homework prior to being sworn in, I'll give you a copy of that AG direction, and probably can find you some of those old notes from the 3 or 4 times before. It'd be about 2 hours reading each for 3 different meetings. Yeah, you can get your first 10 hours in pretty easy before your first meeting. Thank you, sir.
All right. Madam Clerk, did you want to add a comment?
I think I was.
No eating and drinking in the chamber.
Okay. Councilmember Gregory.
Mine is a question for legal. I'm not sure why we are even discussing sending anything back to the Planning Commission. I'll tell you why, okay? If we've been operating incorrectly for the past, 90 years, okay? And if this body has already voted 9-4 on the change, of which they legally could have done based upon the opinion, then why are we even having this discussion? Because council voted, okay, rightfully so, based upon the opinion, okay, to make the change. We already did what we were supposed to do, and we were doing it consistent with the law, okay? So my question is, why are we even going through this? Why can't what council did many, many times before just be held up?
Why was that against the law?
Right.
Well, and let me try to give a little background to this, and Chip may want to tune in and join me on this, but just for way of background. Okay, there has always, and now with the Attorney General's opinion, okay, there is a conflict on whether this is a zoning issue or a procedural issue. I call it substantive or procedural, okay? As we've heard before last week, the Attorney General's opinion is not law, it's advice. And prior to that time, we had advice of 90 years of practice, all right? So where we find ourselves is we're really got a mixed, in reality, we kind of have a mixed zoning procedural issue that's a novel one for us. And that's why I'm asking you to bear with us as we go through this process, that we don't have all of the answers. But Councilmember Gregory and Councilmember Waring, what we were suggesting is, after taking a closer look, after talking to Councilmember Seekings this afternoon, there is, if you piece together the zoning ordinances, there is a good argument that this issue, this ordinance, a new ordinance, one that we haven't had before, needs to go back to the Planning Commission. Now, you all may disagree with that reading of the ordinance. And if that is the case, certainly this body can move forward and vote to move forward on what we have before you tonight. However, there is some exposure there because we are not following what arguably could be the rules that we're supposed to follow, that Councilmember Seekings pointed out and Chip talked about. So what my common sense advice would be, which you're free to take or not, is that we go ahead, set up we just looked at the ordinance. I think you can amend the agenda of the Planning Commission, have them consider the ordinance, and then on the 17th or prior to our city council, and then it comes back to you for final vote at your meeting. Okay, what that does, okay, bear with me, what that does is it covers our potential exposure if we were to get sued for not following the zoning law. That's where we are.
I can meet on the 18th.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess, Councilmember Gregory, to answer your question, we have never had this form of this ordinance before us before. So I don't think we can bootstrap what we've done before to say that we now, this council now approves this particular ordinance. We need a vote on this ordinance, whether it's after it goes to the Planning Commission or tonight. We've got to vote. You need to vote on this particular ordinance.
And I guess what I'm asking, is that we have voted before. And I do understand that there are some, it's a little different, okay? Because we sent 2 or 3 different iterations over there,
right?
Okay? And my question is, why can't those be considered, particularly if they're consistent with the Attorney General's opinion that we do have the authority to do it, is my question.
Well, because at the time that we were considering those ordinances, right, we were operating under a different scenario. But again, this particular ordinance needs to be voted on. We can't, we can't go back and look at prior ordinances that were not approved by this council. There needs to be an affirmative vote on this particular ordinance as it's written.
And I'm still grappling with why. I mean, because I still say that if we were operating consistently with the Attorney General's opinion, okay, in what we did in the past, and the majority, and it was a majority, more than a majority, okay, voted yay to make the change, okay. I still don't understand why we're here discussing.
Well, the lawyer argument...
Can I weigh in on that? I would just make the observation that we did not have the
Right.
Attorney General's opinion at that time.
Right.
We were operating under the opinion of our corporate counsel, Francis Cantwell, who in all due respect to the Attorney General, I think has a great knowledge and understanding of zoning law in the state of South Carolina. We were operating under her advice, and so when those votes were taken, we ruled that that council did not override the planning commission.
Right.
So that was in the record, that we did not overrule them. So I'm going to move along. I got a number of council members who have asked to be recognized.
But
I
we're
believe
still
in
not-
this order, Councilmember Shade.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, okay?
Yes, sir.
I think I have 15 minutes, okay? And I've not completed 15 minutes.
Well, that's correct. I'll
Okay.
continue to recognize you.
Okay.
How many minutes are you
Please.
into?
I think I'm maybe 2, maybe 10. Just kidding.
Start the clock.
I mean, what you just said, okay,
Yes, sir.
with regard to us not being aware of, and we've been operating, okay, based upon past practice, okay, even though that practice was incorrect based upon the opinion. The fact that we weren't aware, okay, of the Attorney General's opinion, okay, doesn't have anything to do with whether or not we were operating appropriately and correctly. So I don't necessarily, in all due respect, agree with your analysis.
All right. Thank you.
I mean, it's because I don't know that it's not right to steal and I steal. I'm going to be prosecuted accordingly. So, maybe that's an oversimplification,
Right.
Mr. Mayor, but I'm still saying that when this council voted 3 different times, we were doing it, maybe not aware, but we were doing it consistent with the opinion of the Attorney General. And I'll
Right,
be
which
done.
we did not have, and he is an attorney. He's, as our counsel just pointed out, he's not the law. We'd have to
Understand.
go to the court to get a real judgment on that. We had fine legal counsel at the time, and we're not saying that this council won't vote for a majority override of the planning commission. We're just you're given the advice here tonight that in order to survive a court challenge of this proceeding, that we follow our normal procedure.
I understand, and apparently what's normal wasn't appropriate.
Yes, sir.
But we'll just agree to disagree,
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
So next would be Councilmember Shade, then then Griffin, then Moody, then Shealy. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to emphasize this point that has been made, and I think the council needs to pay attention to this one, but it's changed. We've got a document dated October the 8th, 2019. This is a lawyer's opinion about what we can and cannot do. This is not legal authority. It's an opinion. And like everything else that a lawyer provides to his client, in this case being the city of Charleston, he's given us a roadmap as to what may or may not be. If you read this document, and I went back after our meeting last week, on page 5, in our research, we did not find South Carolina case law specifically addressing whether a supermajority vote is required to amend an act of legislative body imposing a supermajority vote requirement. There is no state law. So, and this is not state law. This opinion is not state law. So, wait a minute, I had the floor, Mr. Councilman Waring. So we've got an opinion that we've been relying on by our own council that has interpreted that code that said this is the procedure you must follow, and then this is the vote that is required to have that vote taken. And that's how we've been operating for God knows how many years. So something comes along at our request, and we get a different opinion on that. It's not authority. It's an opinion. So something's going to happen. If we go back, we run the risk that if we don't send this back to Planning Commission and have a public hearing on this, and depending on how the Planning Commission votes on this, if we come back and accept or don't accept their recommendation, and let's just assume they come back the way they had come back several other times and recommend we keep the law the way it is, and we come back and we vote against it and we don't have a supermajority vote against it, we still run the risk of a lawsuit. If that becomes a new law, all we're doing with this is creating a conflict. All this is done is muckied up the waters. That's all this is done. Very simple. And we're going down a path that we just have to be aware of. So our advice from our corporation counsel is follow the procedure. Let's see how the vote turns out. If we have to have a special meeting at the end of December, we'll do it. But I think that we're putting so much stock into this document. It's not legal authority. It's an opinion. That's all that it really is.
I have a question of counsel. I have a question of Councilman. Yeah, I have a question of
Yes,
the lawyer over here.
Council Griffin has the floor now.
Yeah, but no,
I'll be able to answer
I
your
have a
question.
question of what he just said.
I'll recognize you for a
Thank you.
question to the speaker.
He said the Attorney General's opinion isn't law. Okay, what is Francis Cantwell's opinion?
That's what I said. We have an opinion. We have an opinion from our corporation counsel that we operated under for a number of years, and now we've got a different opinion. It's just like any other client. Clients decide to follow or not follow the lawyer's advice.
Isn't Francis Cantwell's opinion in the same vernacular
Exactly.
as you counsel the Attorney General?
And you've got a split. You've got a conflict now between one person's opinion versus another person's
The
opinion.
final arbiter of zoning is City Council.
The final arbiter of this is going to probably be a court case.
All right, Councilmember Griffin.
I think that's where the concern I have with all of this.
Before we start pushing.
Councilmember Griffin, I'm going to recognize
Pushing a
next.
court case. We all want to avoid court cases whenever we can.
I'm not scared of city.
I'm not scared of it either. I'm not
Councilmember
scared.
Griffin has the floor, please.
I'm not scared of it at all. I believe this body right here makes these decisions, including the mayor and council. I totally agree. This is just an opinion. Francis Cantwell's was just an opinion. So let's wash both of them away. Let's just throw them both away, and let's actually look at this law right here. To me, I've got two other opinions that I'd like to ask of Mr. McQueenie. Can we take second reading tonight, and then go to this is third. We've already, I don't know, this is second reading.
Now up for
Second reading. Can we take second reading to show the Planning Commission of the affirmative of the City Council once again, so they see we've taken first and second, and then we can send it to them in between second and third?
There's an Attorney General's opinion from a while back that says that
Well, we shouldn't even worry about that then.
as long as the Planning Commission has given their opinion before you've taken final action.
Okay, I would make a substitute motion that we take second reading tonight. I want to see this council say yes again. But
I'll second it for a question. I'll second it for.
But I have one more thing I want to say. You made a comment that all we're doing is sending this to the Planning Commission for some sort of, we're not sending it for approval.
Report and recommendation.
Report and recommendation, but not an approval or disapproval. We can then just have a simple majority vote in the affirmative, and that would put this into law.
According to the Attorney General's opinion, yes.
All right.
But we have the motion on the floor already. to give it second reading. So you didn't need to make another motion for that. We've been discussing it all this time since making the motion. I do not believe, did we have a motion to defer?
Yes, but I didn't get a second.
We didn't get a second on it yet. All right. So Councilmember Moody, I'm going to recognize you next, and then Councilmember Shealy. And
Yeah,
then
I guess
think
I'm getting
everybody's
kind of
been
lost in all these opinions. I never saw a case that came before anybody that didn't have two lawyers with separate and different opinions. That's what makes good lawsuits. So I'm not afraid of a lawsuit. And the only way, I think this rule, and that's what this is. This is a rule that was adopted by a city council many years ago. And I think this body has the right to change that rule without getting the opinion of some appointed body. I think it's just that simple. I'm disappointed that we didn't ask the right question if we got a bad opinion from the Attorney General, or we didn't ask enough questions. But I'm ready to move on this thing. We have been to the Planning Commission. We've asked them to change it to 2/3 to 60%. I know we went and asked them at least twice to change it. I don't need to be kicked again by the Planning Commission that says, no, we don't want you to change it, and then, because we're going to be right back in the same place we are. Now, if there's a procedural thing that we need to go through, I'm willing to give it second reading tonight, have a Planning Commission meeting on the 18th, if that's the right term.
No.
Have a city council meeting, defer it from the 17th to the 19th, and then vote it, give it third reading then. That's where I am. If all we got to do is a procedural thing, then let's do that.
Right.
But if we can do that tonight, evidently, and that's where I am. But I'm going to vote to change this thing to a simple majority, or, somebody else will get to do it in this seat.
The motion's still on the floor. I hadn't recognized Councilmember Shealy yet.
But, okay, a lot of what I was going to say was kind of covered over here, so I think we need to vote on it tonight, though. Thank you.
But I have a question. We need to get the dates locked down.
They got tried. They're trying.
Okay, everybody's been heard at least one time? Okay, now we'll go around for the second round. Councilmember Lewis and then Waring.
Same thing I explained, the Attorney General's opinion. We were told the same thing 12 years ago, or maybe a little over 12. And it says all the powers lie with council. We have the authority to change this. The other thing is, every time this discussion came up, every attorney that we got now, Mr. McQueen is a little new, so he might not have been here the first time. But I always say, if the ordinance is not good enough, why don't y'all rewrite the ordinance and give it to us? Rewrite it. Nobody never made no hint to try to rewrite the ordinance. Our attorneys. And now you're going to tell us we're going to be sued if we go along with the Attorney General's opinion, who is responsible for overseeing the laws of the state of South Carolina? Something got to be wrong here. Something got to be wrong. So we need to vote on this, and if the vote comes down the way the Planning Commission don't like it, and the folks downtown don't like it, then let the city sue city council. That's all I'm going to say.
Councilmember Waring.
Crazy.
I'm going to vote for the second reading of the passage of this. I agree with Senator, but I just want to make sure in the motion we got the dates knocked down, so when we go to the Planning Commission, we meet after the Planning Commission has voted on it. So we're going to postpone, I guess, Mr. Mayor and Clerk of Council, we're going to postpone the next City Council meeting to the 19th?
Either that or you can call for a special meeting.
Right, meeting.
You mean special meeting of the Planning
Council.
Commission?
Vanessa doesn't want, the clerk doesn't want a special council meeting, but I think we've already advertised a lot of things that require a certain number of days' notice for the 17th. Oh, sorry.
I just want to make sure we have the...
Changing, so we're trying to find out. And they're talking to me on the other side of the room.
Maybe get council's opinion. Should we ask for a special meeting of the Planning Commission? What is your
With 24
advice?
hours notice. So we could set a date for next week
Yes.
and then stay on track with our regular city council meeting schedule.
Yeah, I'd rather do that than, so can we make that part of the motion? You
So
accept that as amendment to your motion?
Who made the motion?
so there's one.
Okay, we had, I'm playing
Your
catch
quorum,
up
so you
since I
want
just,
to-
but we had an initial motion from Councilmember Mitchell and Councilmember Shield.
Yeah, Councilmember Mitchell made the motion. Would you accept an amendment?
No, my apologies. We're just coordinating about when we can get our meetings done. So my apologies for speaking into the microphone.
Sorry, I'm sorry. So if we can get some flexibility on the scheduling of the special meeting for the Planning Commission, because Jacob has to make sure he can get a quorum there, which.
That's what I was about to ask, because if they don't get a quorum, then maybe we have.
Well, our commitment
is, we can be, they're going to meet on the 18th, you said?
Our commitment is that we will poll members and we will get them there prior to your meeting so that you can then reassemble and take a vote on their actions. So that's what we will do. And we will make sure that we will do it next week if possible.
I almost rather postpone the city council meeting to the 19th. Because it's holiday season, people traveling,
Right.
et cetera.
That's right. That would be better.
They're already down 3 or 4 members. So why don't we have, what does it take to postpone the city council meeting to the 19th?
You have to give notice.
Okay, how much time we need to give notice? Cut your microphone off.
Oh, I put my microphone on. Thank you. So theoretically, we could give 24 hours notice, but we would do that. We would do more than that. But technically, we could give a 24-hour notice that we were changing.
I mean, since the planning commission is already, they're down, I think, 3 members, why don't we let that meeting stay the same and we move our meeting to the 19th?
That's the easiest thing.
Do we need to take a vote on it?
Already have
And they're set for the 17th.
Got 2 motions.
If it makes it easier, you all serve until the second Monday in January under our ordinances.
Right.
So you could do a meeting before the 14th, I think is, the 13th is the last day of current council's term.
I don't know, we might have to send Chief Reynolds to catch up with some of these guys.
You got some time to have a special meeting.
Okay,
Let's vote on the question of the matter, and we will have the authority.
I guess I just wanted to ask a question. All right, so we've got the motion on the floor that Councilman Mitchell gave, right? That's what we would be.
For second reading of item number 10, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If there would be no way to do both, is that correct? To vote second and third reading on this, send it to the planning commission and do it both ways. We can only do one or the other, is that correct?
Correct. You can give it third reading tonight if you want to, just disavow the advice we've received.
But it would be,
Yeah.
okay.
Suits me fine at this point.
No.
Oh, I'm looking at the old agenda. It's number 9.
Number 9.
It's number 9 of the amended agenda.
Yes.
Sorry.
Call the question and give a second.
All right, this is for a second
For
reading.
second reading of number 9, second reading. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
No.
Call the roll.
That's, how do you do that? What does it come
Got
to?
Seeking, Shade, and Tecklenburg, and Jackson voting no.
All right, so I have four nays.
Right,
No, we don't need
You don't give a third reading.
okay.
We need to make a motion to set city council meeting at the 19th. I mean, given the gravity that we only have 5 or 6 members on the planning commission meeting, I think it's unreasonable to ask for a special meeting and expect them to have a quorum. So they're going to meet anyway on the 18th, as I understand it. I make a motion that city council meeting be scheduled for the 19th.
Second.
Could I respectfully ask that we agree to have a meeting while this council is still in force prior to January, whatever? I have a commitment on the evening of the 19th that I've made. unless y'all want to do it during the daytime. But
Councilmember Shade's available.
could we just have a, I'm sorry?
Your mayor pro tem's available.
Oh, there you go.
Love that. We'd love that duty.
Well, maybe so. Could we just have a motion to agree to a special meeting while this particular council is still empowered?
Well, I think we need to do it in December. I don't think we need to go to January.
Change the date, just keep in mind that we're going to have to change some of the public hearings.
I'm just making a suggestion. You're free to make any motion you like.
Well, no, I want you to be there.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it won't be a public hearing anyway.
Mr. Mayor, what time frame we need to stay away from? We need to move the meeting early to accommodate your schedule? The next meeting's not going to be that long. No.
I'm good at 5 o'clock as long as we're out by 6:30. 7 o'clock.
Okay. 5 o'clock on the 19th.
We could do that.
And maybe we can bump this up on the agenda?
My suggestion is you keep the 17,000 and the special meeting will eliminate.
No, we're just talking about the 19th. Mr. Mayor said that his... Right.
Yeah, if we're just doing a special meeting with one item, that would work on the 19th at 5.
That's right.
Okay.
Keep it as is, and we just discuss.
Special meeting on the 19th.
So we keep the 17th, and then on the 19th, we meet. Yeah.
We have a motion then. Would you repeat the motion, please?
My motion would be that we maintain the hearing on the, council meeting on the 17th, and have a special meeting sometime in the afternoon of the 19th. What's that?
Good for-
Is there a motion the other way? Do we need to take that off?
No, it was never.
1 second.
He
I don't think so.
suggested it.
Yeah.
We started the discussion, maybe prematurely.
Question?
Okay, did we get a second to the motion?
I say
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Gregory.
And this, are we sure that there will be a quorum there on the 18th?
Yes, the regular meeting. Probably gonna
I mean, it's a regular meeting, but are we sure there will be a quorum? Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor of having a special meeting on 19th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor,
Just one nay?
Mr. Mayor, I have one point.
Yes, sir.
We just got through discussing in an elongated manner the Planning Commission decision on the Epic Center. Now, when the Planning Commission votes something approval, which they approved the Epic Center, we didn't approve that. We didn't approve 25 stories and et cetera, et cetera. We were able to change that, and you know what? All we needed was a simple majority. We didn't need a super majority, and I think everybody would say, and in fairness to the Planning Commission, I think they wanted a second crack at the Epic Center. What they came forward with the City Council would have been denied at City Council, and it would not have required, if the vote was for 25 stories, it wouldn't have passed. And we wouldn't have needed a simple majority. Why? Because they approved it. Am I right about that, Councilman? I'm right about that. They approved the Epic Center with a 25-story height limit. The Planning Commission did. And when it came to City Council, if we disagreed with that, we didn't need a supermajority as a matter of fact, we did disagree with it.
Right.
And they changed it, and they modified it, and it got to the point to where, even on if we required a supermajority, Councilor, did the passage of the Epic Center third reading get 10 votes? It did not. It didn't get 10 votes. My point is, if they pass something and we disagree, we can change it with a simple majority. But if they disapprove something and we disagree, then we have to have a supermajority. I mean, please, what is the logic in that? Anyway, I thought that needed to be.
So
No,
they,
keep your seat.
I mean, I hear you. They approved a PUD and we approved a PUD. We changed some of the
We
conditions.
changed it
of
mightily. We changed
So
it mightily.
You get into whether this is a guideline or a hard and fast rule. We'll have to check with the Pirates of the Caribbean. 5 o'clock, I believe, would be okay if, with
Right, we
me, if
didn't have a
that's okay
specific
with
time,
y'all.
it just needed to be before 6:30.
Okay. Now, we had one item that shows on the agenda to be withdrawn.
Yes.
Can I get a motion
Move
to
for
withdraw number 20?
Withdraw number 20.
Yeah. And a second, any discussion? Who's the second?
Second.
Councilmember Gregory.
Okay. All in favor of withdrawing number 20, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the ayes have it. Next, we just have one bill up for first reading regarding the Old City Height districts.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the ayes have it. Now, can I entertain a motion that we go into executive session to discuss a legal matter?
Give me 3 minutes, gotta go.
And we'll take a 3-minute break to get to my office. All in favor to go in executive session, please say aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. We'll meet in 3 minutes in my office.